Chapter 3193. Absorbing virile was only a temporary idea. In fact, even Lin Feng himself did not expect to break through the Hongmeng Yuan body. Everyone knew that such a transformation could only happen when one broke through to become a powerful being. Previously, Lin Feng's heart had a faint fluctuation, but he did not know what it was. Lin Feng had no experience. If it was any other cultivator, it would be the same, who had tried to transform the Hongmeng Yuan body in the dimensional space. Looking at the Hongmeng Sea, the 5 great world lords had never transformed the Hongmeng Yuan body, let alone in the dimensional space. The arrow had left the bow and could not be retracted. Lin Feng could not forcibly suppress the transformation of the Hongmeng Yuan body. This was an irreversible process. Who knew what would happen if he suppressed it? It was possible that he would directly seal his own cultivation path. Since the opportunity had come, he could not miss it. If Lin Feng was not so greedy, completing the transformation would be as easy as taking a stroll in the park. To the current him, the risk was not so great. Although virile was strong, Lin Feng had a certain level of resistance against virile. It would not be a problem for him to endure until the end of the transformation. However, Lin Feng's Hongmeng Yuan body was not saturated enough and had only absorbed 69% of the virile. Although he could still transform, such a transformation would affect the perfection of the Hongmeng Yuan body and affect the upper limit of his cultivation. Lin Feng was naturally unwilling. If there was not enough energy, wasn't there already enough in the dimensional space? He could transform the Zerg's energy and the Nether Killer's energy. Why couldn't virile do the same? Forcefully absorbing the dimensional energy, Lin Feng was also a person of great skill and courage, fearless and fearless. Under normal circumstances, absorbing this little bit of virile was enough to destroy Lin Feng. Transform? This was virile, the strongest power of the virile realm. Not to mention a tiny bit, even a sliver of it would be impossible to convert. This was because virile itself was a supreme power, perfect and flawless. Lin Feng's level was not just a little bit lower than virile's. Forcefully absorbing, it was like an ant trying to swallow an elephant. Of course, under normal circumstances, Lin Feng would not be able to convert virile, nor would he absorb it. Even if he absorbed it, he would be able to expel it. But now, it was not a normal situation. The transformation of Hongmeng's golden body followed the rules and changed according to the rules. It was not something that could be reversed or changed as one wished. Perhaps, when there was a power stronger than virile, it could forcefully stop Hongmeng's metamorphosis. But at least for now, virile wasn't able to stop the transformation of Hongmeng metal body into Hongmeng primary body. Just like the rolling gears of history, no one with peerless talent could change them. Perhaps they could leave a deep mark in history, but that was all. Crack! Crack! Lin Feng felt as if his entire body was about to be torn apart. Virile, which was gradually being assimilated, was like a wild and untamed beast, frantically trying to break free from its restraints and escape its cage. But the power of the heavens was above everything else. Virile was in Hongmeng's golden body. During the transformation, the energy belonging to Hongmeng's golden body would be completely converted into a new Hongmeng primary body, and the essence would be condensed into Hongmeng elemental energy. This method was practically useless in the Hongmeng Sea. This was because in the Hongmeng Sea, Hongmeng's energy was one of the strongest energies. But in the dimensional space, Hongmeng's energy was only SOSO. It was only the energy of a dimensional world. Even energy that was stronger than Hongmeng's energy would have to obediently submit to virile. Just a little bit of virile was already enough to cause Lin Feng's Hongmeng golden body to explode. The golden consciousness wrapped around and maintained the cycle of the heavens. The entire transformation process was an irreversible process. No matter how unwilling virile was, it could only be assimilated. However, it was difficult to predict what would happen after the assimilation. Whether it would be a blessing or a curse was also unknown. This was a gamble, and no one knew what the outcome would be. Lin Feng dared to try it because he had a lot of knowledge about virile over the past few decades. It was very strong, stronger than anything. However, this strength was not targeted. It did not have any malicious intent. It was purely an ownerless energy that was incomparably powerful and could crush everything. Since that was the case, why couldn't it be used? As the irreversible transformation continued, Lin Feng slowly completed the Hongmeng primary body in the legends of the Hongmeng Sea. Although it was unknown whether he was the first to complete the Hongmeng primary body, it was definitely unprecedented. In the future, there would probably be no one like him. After all, Lin Feng was only a Yuan Venerate. How terrifying would it be for a Yuan Venerate to complete the Hongmeng primary body? It was equivalent to doubling one's foundation, which was already comparable to an ultimate universe ruler and directly reaching the level of a world lord. At that time, he would break through to become an almighty and break through with the foundation of a world lord. Just thinking about it was already terrifying. There was always a great opportunity when there was great danger. Back then, the calamity of Taishu had created the invincible Emperor Guhuang. Now, the invasion of the underworld kill race had also caused Lin Feng to embark on a different path. Without a dimensional passage, he cannot come into contact with dimensional spaces or consciousness. If he cultivated step by step, Lin Feng would certainly have great opportunities. In the future, he would possess the Taichu origin chaotic universe and become a world lord. The strongest powerhouse of the Taichu Sea would still be in the box of the Hongmeng Sea. However, Lin Feng had now chosen to jump out of this box. Break the cage. He would start by assimilating this tiny bit of virile. If he had only transformed the Hongmeng primary body into a Hongmeng primary body, this simple heavenly Tao process would have been directly destroyed by virile. If Lin Feng's Hongmeng primary body wasn't strong enough, and his control of consciousness wasn't enough, it would also have been destroyed by virile during the transformation process. Now, everything was just right. It was as if it was predestined. As Lin Feng's primary body of the universe reached the pinnacle of the universe ruler, the transformation was natural. That tiny bit of virile transformed along with Lin Feng's Hongmeng primary body and formed a brand new Hongmeng primary body. It symbolized the most extreme path and the strongest power of the Hongmeng Sea Heart cultivators. No, it was even stronger than the Hongmeng primary body. A drop of ink could turn a basin of water black. A drop of virile was enough to transform Lin Feng's Hongmeng primary body. Furthermore, Lin Feng had absorbed more than one drop. Even though Lin Feng had successfully completed the transformation and assimilation under the heavenly Tao, that tiny bit of virile didn't disappear. Instead, it fused into Lin Feng's Hongmeng primary body in a different form. It was tiny and insignificant, but it matched the energy level of the Hongmeng primary body perfectly. This was the mutated Hongmeng primary body, or rather, the Hongmeng primary body that virile had transformed. So comfortable, Lin Feng floated in the dimensional space. At this moment, there were no restrictions or pressure. He could clearly feel the virile around him. It no longer exerted any pressure on him. It was as if they were one body and he was a part of virile. It was as relaxing and comfortable here as it was in the Hongmeng Sea. Even the strongest world lords had to be restricted by the dimensional space to resist the pressure of virile. However, Lin Feng didn't need to do that now. He could stay in the dimensional space for as long as he wanted. Not only that, but he wasn't restricted by the will of the manifestation realm. He could easily see his surroundings as if he was looking at something. The range was 100 times greater than the will of the manifestation realm. A brand new dimensional space opened up like a painting and appeared in front of him. Chapter 3194. Hongmeng Elemental Energy. Lin Feng could feel the vigorous energy surging through his body. It was 100 times stronger than the golden Hongmeng elemental energy. Just based on this alone, he had already stepped into the level of a world lord. Furthermore, his Hongmeng elemental energy contained other types of energy. The imperceptible virile. It was extremely fine, but it truly existed. Lin Feng could feel it, and was even more clear that the damage this imperceptible elemental energy could bring was more than 10 times stronger than the Hongmeng elemental energy under normal circumstances. The current him, relying on his newly born Hongmeng elemental body, was already able to go toe-to-toe with a world lord. Furthermore, as the Hongmeng elemental body absorbed more energy, its strength would also grow stronger. Oh, I can't call it the Hongmeng elemental body anymore. It already crushes the Hongmeng elemental body in all aspects. Since it mutated through virile, I'll just call it the Hongmeng dimensional body. The one and only Hongmeng dimensional body. Lin Feng was in a very good mood. Even though the primordial dimensional body was very special and there wasn't any path of cultivation that could be explored, Lin Feng could only slowly fumble about. However, Lin Feng had been fumbling his way all along, so he didn't really mind. The Hongmeng virile is 10 times stronger than Hongmeng elemental energy. Lin Feng could feel the traces of virile contained within the Hongmeng elemental energy. It was boundless and boundless. This was the true pinnacle of energy, and he now possessed it. The most precious thing it had given him wasn't its own strength, but a door, a path to walk towards the dimensional space and explore the wider world. After transforming into the Hongmeng dimensional body, Lin Feng seemed to have improved in all aspects. He had completely broken through the shackles and stepped into a new level. It was as if he had stepped from the bottom of the clouds to the top of the clouds. It wasn't as if he had been completely reborn, but rather reborn. The comprehension of his previous realm and the creation of his blade technique were all from his heart. Everything was natural, just like the virile, tyrannical to the point of dominating all other types of energy. His control of the will was instantly mastered. The master of the world? To a certain extent, Lin Feng's realm had already surpassed that of a world lord. The Hongmeng dimensional body absorbs virile? Lin Feng, who had a sudden inspiration, immediately tried to absorb virile. However, in the dimensional space, virile was like an endless ocean, and he could only absorb a drop in the ocean. However, a single grain was already large enough. Lin Feng was very careful now. He only took a small amount. Even if he couldn't absorb it, at least it wouldn't cause damage to his body. I can contain it, but it doesn't seem to be able to absorb it. However, this wasn't unexpected. After all, this was virile, the energy that stood at the apex of the endless dimensional worlds. How could it be so easy to absorb it? If it absorbed all the virile in his body, wouldn't he be able to walk unhindered? Maybe it's not that I can't absorb it. It's just that my current strength is too weak. It was like using teeth to bite the hardest metal in the universe. Naturally, he couldn't bite through it. Since it could contain virile, it should be able to absorb it. Well, he was strong enough. Although I can't absorb virile, I can absorb other types of energy. In the dimensional space, there was no lack of energy. Virile was like a mighty general, commanding and suppressing all other types of energy. There were strong and weak types of energy, and he could take whatever he wanted. Sure enough, it's possible. Lin Feng quickly sensed that his Hongmeng dimensional body was slowly improving. It wasn't that the efficiency wasn't high, but that the Hongmeng dimensional body was too powerful, much stronger than the Hongmeng metal body. If he were to absorb Hongmeng energy now, his improvement would be even slower. In the dimensional space, many of the energies suppressed by virile were stronger than those of Hongmeng. In the future, I won't be lacking in energy to upgrade my Hongmeng dimensional body. Previously, Lin Feng had a huge headache trying to upgrade his Hongmeng metal body. He had wantonly exchanged for Hongmeng origin crystals to absorb, which had caused him to lose all his wealth. It was even more of a headache trying to upgrade his Hongmeng dimensional body, which was like a bottomless pit. Now, he could freely enter the dimensional space and absorb the vast majority of other types of energy. There were no longer any obstacles in his path of cultivation. Let's take a look around. Lin Feng moved about freely in the dimensional space. Not far from him was his second brother, Shi Wanli, who was bitterly cultivating. However, Shi Wanli couldn't see him. A brand new dimensional space appeared before his eyes. It was no longer as unreachable as before, like a colossus. It was just like how people on ships feared tsunamis and storms. However, in the ocean, various types of marine life lived freely. Lin Feng was now just like a life form in the dimensional space. It said that there are naturally life forms in the dimensional space. I wonder what they are like. Although Lin Feng was curious, he didn't want to encounter them for the time being. Who knew what kind of life forms in the dimensional space were, and whether they were aggressive? It would be fine if they were kind. However, if they were aggressive, he would suffer a calamity. No matter how he looked at it, the life forms in the dimensional space weren't kind. Let's try sensing with the Hongmeng Viral. Lin Feng controlled the fake Viral to sense his surroundings. In a split second, his senses rapidly spread out like a radar with him as the center. The Viral in his surroundings didn't obstruct him in the slightest. Although he was a fake Viral, he seemed to be a type of Viral and wasn't rejected by the Viral. In an instant, the range of his senses expanded by more than 100 times. Lin Feng felt much more at ease now. If his luck wasn't good enough and he really encountered one, he would be able to quickly escape. However, whether or not he could escape was another matter. Speaking of which, his luck shouldn't be that bad, right? As Lin Feng roamed the dimensional space, he felt a comfort he had never felt before. At the same time, he absorbed all kinds of energy. Lin Feng basically didn't reject any of them. The absorption efficiency of each type of energy was different, with some being high, some being low. Some were easy to absorb, while others weren't. Lin Feng didn't have much experience at the moment. In any case, he had to absorb all of them once. This was something that practice makes perfect. The more he absorbed, the more experience he would gain. When the time came, he would be able to pick those that were easy to absorb, pure, and vigorous. Without boundaries or coordinates, it was indeed easy to get lost after roaming the dimensional space for a long time. However, Lin Feng had left a manifestation of his will in I Chen's body, so he wasn't afraid of getting lost. He wasn't in a hurry to return. There was still some time before the next attack of the Netherkill clan. The Hongmeng dimensional body that had just transformed also needed time to consolidate and upgrade. The empty Hongmeng Viral also needed time to absorb. Swimming in the dimensional space like a fish, Lin Feng now knew why it wasn't reliable to search for treasures in the dimensional space. For example, when Fan Zhu's manifestation of his will spread out, the range of his senses was less than 1/10,000th of his own. Furthermore, he could only sense from where he was. The probability of finding treasures was equivalent to waiting for a rabbit to appear. However, Fan Zhu really managed to find a rabbit that possessed a unique dimensional treasure. Their search for treasures is definitely like searching for a needle in a haystack. They need a lot of patience. Lin Feng could roughly guess that the world lords had to rely on time to wait for tens of thousands of eras to find the dimensional unique treasures. Although the efficiency was extremely low, the world lords had plenty of time, and many of their realms were already shackled. Rather than forcefully breaking through, they might as well try their luck with dimensional treasures. As he was thinking, Lin Feng's heart suddenly trembled. After searching for a third of an era in this vast and boundless yet empty dimensional space, he made a discovery for the first time. Chapter 3195. It was a beautiful emerald jade bead. There was even a chain with fine vein patterns on it. When Lin Feng held it in his hand, he felt a cool sensation. However, there wasn't any excess energy, and it wasn't suppressed by dimensional energy. Dimensional treasure? Lin Feng was somewhat startled. Logically speaking, anything that could survive in the dimensional space was definitely not ordinary. At the very least, it was at the level of a Hongmeng sovereign. At the very least, it should be at the level of an almighty Hongmeng sovereign that had not been destroyed by Viral. However, this emerald jade bead necklace, no matter how one looked at it, it was just an ornament. At the very most, it was made of a very special material. Lin Feng was not sure if he could use a dimensional treasure. However, there was one thing that he was sure of. If this jade bead necklace had any energy, he would definitely be able to sense it. After all, He could now absorb almost any energy below virile. No energy. It's just an ornament. Extravagant. Lin Feng was speechless. It did not contain any energy, yet it could float in the dimensional space without being destroyed by virile. What kind of material was this? If one wanted to forge it into a weapon, even if it did not have any special effects, it would still be a Hongmeng sovereign. Such a treasure was actually made into an ornament? The dimensional space is so vast. There are indeed all kinds of strange things. Lin Feng knew that there were many dimensional worlds in the dimensional space. Not all of them were like the Hongmeng Sea and the Netherkill world. They might have their own culture, beliefs, and complete systems. There was no lack of treasures in the dimensional space. The dimensional space itself could give birth to treasures in life. If a dimensional world was destroyed, many treasures could appear in the dimensional space. Of course, the prerequisite was that the treasures were strong enough to not be destroyed by virile. There were also many experts who tempered themselves in the dimensional space or were forced to enter the dimensional space. Although they died in the dimensional space, their treasures would not necessarily disappear. Ornament. Lin Feng pulled the emerald jade bead necklace with all his strength. Even with his strength, he was unable to break it. Even with the Hongmeng virile, he was unable to destroy this jade bead necklace. Tough. Even virile was unable to damage it. Naturally, his fake virile would not be able to do the same. Hua, the Hongmeng virile wrapped around the necklace, was unable to penetrate it. It was like a stone in the dimensional space. There was no way to control. Its only use seemed to be an ornament. However, no matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a beautiful necklace. From the perspective of the primordial sea, this seemed to have a period of history. He swept through the surroundings once more, but didn't find anything else. This jade pearl necklace seemed to exist by itself, or perhaps the other treasures that accompanied it had all been annihilated by dimensional energy over the countless years. It was good if he had it, but there was nothing he could do if he did not. Lin Feng was not here to search for treasures. He did not have the leisure to do so. Furthermore, the dimensional treasures he found might not be usable. For example, this jade bead necklace. Counting the time it took to return, it should be about an era. The timing of the Netherkiller's attacks was basically very accurate. They seemed to have a purpose. They would attack once every 1 or 2 eras, but they were not very precise. They might attack a little more than 1 era, or they might attack in the last 2 eras. Furthermore, they did not linger in battle and would leave after a wave of attacks. It was hard not to be suspicious of such a strange way of fighting. However, even if he was suspicious, it would not change anything. Once the Netherkiller clan attacked, the Hongmeng Sea would have to fight back. Otherwise, the Netherkiller clan would be able to march straight into the Hongmeng Twin Towers. When the time came, as long as the Nine Hells Monarch guarded the dimensional passageway, the Netherkiller clan experts will be able to continuously attack the Hongmeng Sea. If it is as Fan Zhu and the other world lords guessed, the Netherkiller clan attacked the Hongmeng Sea because the Netherkiller dimension world was about to be destroyed, but this is not their dimension world. The Hongmeng Sea has the Hongmeng laws and Hongmeng energy. The environment that the Netherkiller clan relies on for survival is definitely different from the Hongmeng Sea. That is why they have their unique physique and talents, as well as their nether power. The Hongmeng Sea does not have these. Even if they can occupy the Hongmeng Sea and live here, what about their descendants? Lin Feng did not think that things were that simple. The Netherkiller clan was a fighting clan. Their belief in power and passion for battle were 100 times stronger than the Hongmeng Sea. They were natural warriors who lived for battle. For such a clan to abandon their original environment and come to a dimension world without nether power, how was this different from killing them? Was the Netherkiller clan that lived in the Hongmeng Sea still the Netherkiller clan? If it's just for the sake of survival, they're forced to leave their homes and risk everything to attack the primordial ocean. This matter might be slightly simpler, but if they have ulterior motives, then this is the true calamity of the primordial ocean. Lin Feng still did not know. However, he was clear about one thing. No matter what, as long as he was strong enough, wouldn't it be fine to fight the Nether Killer clan back? If it was before he transformed into the Hongmeng origin body, Lin Feng would not have had any confidence. However, he now had the unique Hongmeng dimensional body in the Hongmeng Sea. His current combat power had reached the level of a world lord. He did not fear the Nether Killer clan. Speeding through the dimensional space, Lin Feng retraced his steps. Basically, there wasn't much danger as his dimensional energy was no longer obstructed. Although the dimensional space's resistance was extremely great, with Lin Feng's current speed, even the strongest world lord could not catch up. This place had become his home ground. Fourth dimension channel. I Chen and Shi Wanli were anxious and pacing back and forth. Lin Feng had entered the dimension world for more than an era. Lin Feng usually had a sense of time. An era was an era, and he would definitely return on time. However, there was no news of him this time. The key was that I Chen and Shi Wanli did not materialize their wills and could not search for Lin Feng. After entering the dimension world, they could only fumble around. Could something have happened? This was what I Chen was most worried about. Although they were the strongest in the Hongmeng Sea, they were no different from ants in the dimension world. The strength of the dimension world far exceeded their level of strength. Not only them, but even the strongest world lord was the same. Big Brother should be fine. Although that was the case, Shi Wanli was more worried than I Chen. After entering the dimension world, he knew what kind of place it was. It was like a cliff. The slightest carelessness would result in death. He anxiously paced back and forth, his brows furrowed. Suddenly, bang, a loud sound startled the two of them. Chapter 3196. Under the wide-eyed gazes of I Chen and Shi Wanli, Lin Feng slowly entered the dimensional space. His expression was calm, as though he had just returned from a trip, a faint smile hanging on his face. As Lin Feng entered, the shattered walls of the dimensional passageway slowly recovered. "I'm sorry, I didn't estimate the time correctly." Lin Feng apologized. Originally, he could have rushed back within an era. However, this was the first time Lin Feng had entered the dimensional space. There were many aspects that he wasn't familiar with, and he had forgotten that the dimensional space was constantly changing. The way in and the way out were different. Simply put, the way in was a straight line, while the way back was a mess. Just like the dimensional passageway, the construction of the dimensional passageway required constant rest. Otherwise, it would take longer and longer, and the consumption of the will would increase until the dimensional passageway couldn't handle it anymore. "Lin Feng, you came from the outside." I Chen only reacted after a long while. He was truly shocked. "Big Brother, how did you attack in the dimensional space?" Shi Wanli blinked his eyes, filled with curiosity. He had tried many times, but was simply unable to attack in the dimensional space. All of his power was blocked by Viral. "I forgot." Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. In his rush to return, he had momentarily forgotten that he couldn't attack in the dimensional space. The main reason was that he had been in the dimensional space for the past few days and had long adapted to it. Opening the dimensional passageway was natural. He had sensed the will within I Chen's body and directly entered. However, he had forgotten that under normal circumstances, experts from the Hongmeng Sea were unable to attack in the dimensional space. Forgot? I Chen and Shi Wanli looked at each other. What kind of explanation was this? Had he forgotten that he couldn't enter from the outside? Or had he forgotten to hide his strength? Could it be that the reason he hadn't attacked from the dimensional space was to take care of their emotions? I Chen and Shi Wanli were somewhat absent-minded. However, Lin Feng didn't continue speaking, and they were too embarrassed to continue asking. There were many special things that had happened to Lin Feng. He was even able to absorb the will energy of others. Attacking in the dimensional space, it didn't seem like a big deal. I Chen and Shi Wanli didn't take this too seriously either. In their hearts, Lin Feng was a monster. Whatever bizarre things he did seemed to become very normal. As his companions, it was best for them not to make a fuss over nothing. "How long has it been?" Lin Feng asked. "Fortunately, it's been a few hundred years." I Chen replied, "The Nether Killers have yet to attack. It's fine even if we arrive a little later. Anyway, Everyone knows that you, Lin Feng, are busy absorbing the energy of the dimensional passageway. It's a pity that it's been discovered. After that, I won't be able to absorb it anymore. Shi Wanli had already heard the news from Yi Chen. It's only a matter of time before we're discovered. It's already pretty good that we were able to hide until now. Lin Feng didn't mind. After all, he had already absorbed what he needed to absorb. Absorbing more materialized wills wouldn't be of much use to him. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to Invincible that he was able to break through this time. Without the help of his large amount of materialized willpower, he was still far from reaching the level of Hongmeng's body. Lin Feng, you seem a little different? Yi Chen sized up Lin Feng and was a little uncertain. He felt that Lin Feng's aura had changed a little, but what could Yuan Venerate's aura change? Yi Chen felt that his knowledge and experience had become very shallow as he looked at Lin Feng. There were many things that he couldn't understand. Really? In terms of cultivation and experience, Shi Wanli wasn't as good as Yi Chen. Furthermore, he had been cultivating in the dimensional space all this time and was in a daze. Therefore, he couldn't sense any changes in Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled. It's all thanks to Invincible that my strength has increased a little. Oh, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. So, Brother Lin, you've profited from a disaster this time? You can say that. Lin Feng didn't explain too much. He couldn't possibly tell Yi Chen and Shi Wanli that he was now the one and only Hongmeng dimensional body in the Hongmeng Sea, right? It would probably take a long time to explain this. In any case, they would find out very soon. Let's go and finish the last battle in the fourth dimensional passageway. Lin Feng sped toward the infinite Tai Chi array. He already had a plan in mind. It was time to return to the third dimensional passageway. Last battle, Yi Chen and Shi Wanli were at a loss. It seemed like Lin Feng had other ideas. Without asking any questions, the two of them followed closely behind Lin Feng and returned to the infinite Tai Chi array. They weren't far away. The other powerhouses in the array were already on standby. Sect Master Limitless looked over and frowned slightly, but he didn't say anything. The Sect Master of the Spirit Erosion Sect responded with a smile. He didn't care too much about Lin Feng and the other two being late. Ever since Lin Feng had revealed his special ability, the Tai Chi Origin Chaotic Universe had been very friendly to Lin Feng and the other two. Even Sect Master Limitless, who had been the most unhappy with Lin Feng and the other two previously, didn't say anything. This was because they needed Lin Feng very much. On the Grand Change Origin Chaotic Universe's side, Fairy Ling Dai and Light were still cultivating. For the past 20 years, they had been doing the same thing. Fighting, cultivating, fighting, and cultivating again. It seemed that this was all they cared about. They didn't care about external affairs and only cared about themselves. This was their attitude. On the Grand Essence Chaotic Universe's side, the Green Fox Mansion Master narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. No one knew what he was thinking. Huang Kuei hugged his saber with both hands and snorted coldly. He seemed to be very unhappy with Lin Feng's late arrival and glanced at Lin Feng. His displeasure with Lin Feng wasn't just a day or two ago. He had been unhappy with Yi Chen for a long time, and he had long been involved with Yi Chen. Later, their Grand Essence Chaotic Universe's side had slapped the Taichu's side in the face and embarrassed them. Since then, he had been very unhappy with the Taichu. Didn't they just have some special abilities? What was so great about that? In terms of strength, Huang Kuei alone was enough to beat up the three small fries on the Taichu side. If it weren't for the fact that the Grand Essence Chaotic Universe's side had a special way of fighting and had no opportunity to display their strength, Huang Kuei would have wanted to show the Taichu's side how strong the Grand Essence powerhouses were. Even the number one genius of the Hongmeng Sea, Light, was looked down on by the Grand Essence Chaotic Universe. He thought that Light was just fishing for fame and didn't have enough combat ability, let alone the three on the Taichu's side. Yi Chen, who was ranked third among the almighties of the Hongmeng Sea, he couldn't even last 10 moves in the sparring 300 years ago. Lin Feng, a mere Yuan Venerate? What was he? He could defeat him in just 3 moves. However, Huang Kuei was not stupid enough to provoke Lin Feng. Right now, Lin Feng was the treasure of the Grand Essence Chaotic Universe. if he dared to provoke Lin Feng. It would be strange if the powerhouses of the grand essence chaotic universe didn't fight him to the death. Sticking his head out now was the stupidest thing to do. Since they were both in the Hongmeng Sea, there would be plenty of opportunities. When the time came, he would let Lin Feng and I Ching know how big the gap was between the Taichu and the grand essence chaotic universe. What happened, little friend Lin Feng? Dao Wuji, who rarely spoke, suddenly spoke, instantly attracting the attention of all the cultivators. Chapter 3197. Lin Feng replied. I was discovered by Invincible. Thump. All the experts were shocked, especially the experts from Taiji. Their expressions were even uglier. They clearly knew what Lin Feng meant when he said he had been discovered, absorbing the energy of the dimensional passageway. Lin Feng could absorb the energy on the premise that Invincible did not know about it. I Ching had mentioned this before. Blade Light and Sword Shadow had discovered the absorption of the third dimension passageway for 10 eras. After that, they were in a stalemate. Blade Light and Sword Shadow guarded the dimensional passageway with his mind, and Lin Feng could no longer absorb the energy. Dao Wuji opened his eyes and asked with kindness and concern, Are you hurt? Thank you for your concern, Taiji sect leader. I am fine. Lin Feng felt warmth in his heart. Dao Wuji had taken good care of him these days and taught him many skills. He could be considered a good teacher and friend. Even though he was discovered by Invincible, the soul-eroding sect leader, limitless sect leader, and the other Taiji experts were all worried. Only Dao Wuji was concerned about whether he was hurt. This friendship was hard to come by. As long as you were fine. Dao Wuji's white hair fluttered in the wind. He did not ask about anything else, as if being discovered by Invincible was a small matter not worth mentioning. Dao Wuji was calm, but Limitless Sect leader could not hold it in anymore. He frowned and blurted out, How were we discovered? This question made Taichu extremely unhappy. I Ching widened his eyes and said, What do you mean by how are we discovered? Are we willing to be discovered? Please make one thing clear. We are here to help. We are not under the jurisdiction of your Taiji origin chaotic universe. Limitless Sect leader had never been insulted like this before. As a person of high status in the Taiji origin chaotic universe, he was arrogant and bossy. Other than Dao Wuji, he did not listen to anyone else. He was instantly enraged. However, at this moment, an indifferent gaze looked over. Limitless Sect leader gritted his teeth and did not say anything else. Towards Dao Wuji, he was still wary. I'm sorry. My younger brother is a straightforward person. He didn't mean it. Dao Wuji apologized on behalf of Sect Master Limitless. Invincible is the creator of the dimensional channel. It's only a matter of time before he discovers the abnormality of the dimensional channel. This old man is already satisfied that he was able to drag it on for 20 years. Only then did the Taichu's expression soften. Junior has done his best. Lin Feng said to Dao Wuji, Since Invincible has discovered the abnormality, the dimensional passageway is no longer able to absorb energy. After this battle, I will return to the third dimensional passageway to guard it. The Taichu will send other experts to assist. I Ching and Shi Wanli were flabbergasted. They had never heard Lin Feng mention this before. However, it was clear that Lin Feng had already made up his mind. Since Invincible had discovered it, Lin Feng's role in the fourth dimensional passageway would be greatly reduced. It was not a big deal for him to return. Lin Feng was probably tired of staying here. I Ching himself was one of them. He could not fight here. Every time, he had to output energy to fight against the Netherkill race. It was really boring. It was more interesting to return to the third dimensional passageway to fight against the Netherkill race. Yes, young friend Lin Feng has worked hard during this period of time. Dao Wuji nodded. It's my duty, Lin Feng said. Although the conversation was calm, on the Taichu origin chaotic universe's side, other than Dao Wuji, the other experts were already in an uproar. That kind of worry was clearly displayed on their faces. They were extremely anxious and uneasy. It was like a person who was originally very rich suddenly went bankrupt, and creditors came knocking on his door. It was not easy to live a peaceful life in the 20th era. Soon, they would have to live an abyss of suffering again. The experts of Taichu were restless. The Great Change Origin Chaotic Universe's side was still very calm. Fairy Ling Dai and Light did not seem to have heard the news. They were still focused on their own cultivation. They seemed to have adapted to it long ago. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. In the first-dimensional passageway, they had been fighting with a netherkill race for a long time. What was there to be afraid of in a battle? Lin Feng, are you going back now? Taisu Desolate Sutra's sudden voice attracted the attention of all the cultivators, especially the conversation between him and Lin Feng. It was very strange. If they remembered correctly, this should be the first time Taisu Desolate Sutra talked to Lin Feng. He could not bear to part with Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also very surprised. However, he still nodded and replied, yes. Taisu smiled. After this parting, I don't know when we will meet again. We have fought side by side for 20 years and can be considered familiar with each other. I have heard that Lin Feng's saber technique is not bad, and you're very famous in the Taichu. I wonder if you would dare to spar with me and compare our saber techniques? Everyone was in an uproar. After beating around the bush, it turned out that Huang Ho wanted to challenge Lin Feng. The Green Foxhall master stood aside with a smile. He neither said anything nor denied it, as if he was watching a good show. No cultivator on the side of the Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe spoke either. At this point, they would not stand on either side. There was no need to offend the other side. In their hearts, Lin Feng and Tai Su were no different. If you want to challenge me, come and find me. I Chin patted his chest and raised his head. How can a dignified almighty challenge a Yuan venerate? Tai Su shook his head indifferently. I'm not interested in you. I Chin, 300 years ago, you couldn't even last 10 moves from me. I don't think you are a match for me now. There is no point in a duel where the outcome is clear, is there? I Chin was so angry that he did not know how to respond. 300 years ago, he had indeed lost to Tai Su and was ranked third among the almighties of the Hongmeng Sea. You can challenge me, Tai Su said slowly. His pair of eyes appeared to be able to see through everything. His handsome appearance gave people a good impression of him, as though he was the brightest ray of light within the dimensional passageway. All right. Tai Su glanced at Tai Su. Don't be anxious. Come one by one. I will challenge you after I defeat Lin Feng. I will prove to all the cultivators that Tai Su's reputation is undeserved. I, Tai Su, am a #1 genius of the Hongmeng Sea and the chief almighty. Step. Lin Feng stepped forward and walked straight to the center. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up if you want to do it. SSS. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators lit up. They had not expected Lin Feng to be so bold. He was fearless despite knowing Tai Su's strength. Or was he really confident that he could contend with Tai Su? Tai Su's opponent was one of the famous almighties of the Hongmeng Sea. His fighting strength was comparable to an ultimate universe ruler. Lin Feng was only a Yuan venerate. How could he compare to Tai Su? Interesting. The Grand Essence Desolate host slowly walked out with his blade in hand. His eyes flashed with a faint fighting spirit. He looked like a hungry lion. His battle blade emitted a silver light, and his blade, chi, sparkled. His entire body was covered in surging grand mist energy. Let me see how strong you are. Clang. Tai Su's Tai Su Huang Ho was bursting with fighting spirit. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He was extremely unhappy with the Taichu. Finally, he had a chance. He wanted to dampen their spirit. Chapter 3198. Lin Feng wasn't stupid. Over the past 20 years, even a blind person could tell that the Taisu origin was unhappy with the Taichu, especially after the chief of the Green Fox Mansion questioned them. Lin Feng didn't know that I Chin had lost to Huang Ho 300 years ago. I Chin wouldn't bring it up, but it was obvious from the rankings of the Hongmeng Sea. Guang was the top almighty of the Hongmeng Sea. Tai Su was second. I Chin was third. Lin Feng and I Chin were good friends now, and they were about to leave the fourth dimension. Therefore, he didn't mind teaching Huang Ho a lesson and testing his own transformation. Hongmeng dimensional body, Hongmeng virile. How strong was it? Chi. The silver-winged saber danced as if it had grown a pair of silver wings. Huang Ho's movements were clean, and his power was extremely pure. The speed of his attacks was unparalleled. Genuine Hongmeng's secret art. I Chin's strongest technique was the true grade Grand Mist absolute art, and he wasn't able to execute it as freely as Huang Ho. It was obvious that Huang Ho's cultivation realm was higher than I Chin's, and he deserved to be ranked second among the Grand Mist Ocean's almighties. Whoosh! Lin Feng attacked with a saber. The first move of the dark murdering saber art, which was also the move he was most familiar with, was the dark murdering energy breaker. Huang Ho's eyes showed a hint of disdain. A mere Hongmeng's secret art couldn't even withstand a single blow. However, Dao Wuji, who was floating in the air, trembled slightly and stood up with a shocked expression. What did he see? Boom! It was a one-sided clash of power. Both of them were using sabers. Both of them were using overbearing saber moves. It was a clash of pure power. Their true strength was revealed. Under the shocked and incredulous gazes of all the experts present, Huang Qi was like a kite with its string cut as he was blasted back by Lin Feng. Lin Feng hadn't used any other sovereign primordial origin artifact at all. He had merely used a blade strike that was far inferior to Huang Qi's. He pushed Huang Ho back. What happened? The chief of the Green Fox Mansion was also confused. On the Great Change Origins side, Fairy Ling Dai and Light were talking to each other through voice transmission. They looked serious and uncertain. I Chin and Shi Wan Li on the Taichu side were also confused. I Chin knew that Lin Feng was very strong, but Lin Feng wasn't that strong when they sparred. However, there seemed to be something wrong with the power Lin Feng used just now. Yes, the golden power of Hongmeng. Where did the gold go? I Chin couldn't understand what was going on. 100,000 Miles' expression changed slightly. He knew that his big brother Lin Feng had even more secrets. He had a vague idea in his heart, but he didn't dare to confirm it. His eyes sparkled as he stared at the battlefield, unwilling to miss any details. If it was really as he guessed, it would be terrifying. Extremely terrifying. The only person present who was certain of this was Dao Wuji. He had been walking alone on the path of heart cultivation, one step at a time. How could he not know about the ultimate power of heart cultivation? This was not only his pursuit, but also the pursuit of another world lord, Dao Monarch Primal Chaos. However, their power had been shackled, and it was extremely difficult to achieve. He didn't expect to see the legendary power of mental cultivation in his lifetime. Hongmeng Origin Energy. It's Hongmeng Origin Energy. Dao Wuji murmured to himself. He couldn't hide his shock. He didn't know that Lin Feng wasn't just using Hongmeng Origin Energy. If it was purely primordial origin energy, Lin Feng's newly evolved primordial origin energy would not be much stronger than the golden primordial origin energy. It was Hongmeng Virile. After Lin Feng defeated Huang Ho, he chased after him calmly. He gave Huang Ho enough time to defend himself and suppressed him once again. To Lin Feng, this was just a sparring match. The second slash, Zhenpu Zhanming. After the first strike, Lin Feng had a rough understanding of the might of the primordial dimension energy. Even though it was just a small test and was far from attaining the state of erupting with its full strength, the might of the primordial dimension energy had greatly exceeded Lin Feng's expectations. It was more than 1,000 times stronger than the golden power of Hongmeng. Hongmeng Origin Energy was 100 times stronger than the golden power of Hongmeng. Hongmeng Virile was 10 times stronger than the golden power of Hongmeng. This was just a standard calculation. Hongmeng Origin Energy couldn't be 100 times stronger than the golden power of Hongmeng. After all, there wasn't that much Hongmeng Origin Energy. Even if there was, it would be difficult to control. But within the Hongmeng Virile, there was Virile, the pinnacle of all energy, even if it was just a tiny bit, infused with Hongmeng Origin Energy would suppress all other types of energy. This was much more powerful than the Zerg's ability to suppress the Hongmeng Sea. It was like the power of an emperor, powerful and domineering. Under the power of Hongmeng Virile, even if Lin Feng's saber technique was one level lower than Huang Ho's, he could still easily defeat him. And to Lin Feng, this was just a casual slash. He didn't even use his physical strength. The unique primordial dimensional body allowed one's strength and speed to reach the level of a world lord. The stronger one's foundation was, the stronger one would become after the transformation. Lin Feng had transformed from the perfect primordial golden body. 100%. In terms of strength, Lin Feng crushed Huang Ho. Heaven and earth unite. Grand Essence Huang Ho gritted his teeth and unleashed his strongest attack. Being defeated by Lin Feng in one move had left an indelible seed in his heart. His strength felt like it was being crushed by a giant mountain. No matter what realm he was in, he couldn't even use his saber technique. He was directly suppressed. Huang Ho clearly knew that if he didn't use his full strength, he would be in danger. The strongest saber technique. A legendary Hongmeng secret art. In the distance, I Chen's face was deathly pale and rather unsightly. He thought of the terror of being dominated by this move. 300 years ago, he had been defeated by this blade, swallowing the bitter fruit of defeat. There was not a single cultivator present who knew better than him just how powerful this move was. It had already reached the level of a world lord. A true legendary Hongmeng secret art. You have to win, Lin Feng. I Chen clenched his fists and trembled slightly. He wasn't confident, but he had an inexplicable confidence in Lin Feng. Although he didn't know where this confidence came from, he believed Lin Feng would definitely win. Boom! Under the gaze of all the cultivators, Lin Feng's strength suddenly exploded. This time, the energy enveloping his body seemed to be slightly visible. It was clearer and larger than before. It surged onto the saber snow jewel, and the saber was fully displayed. It was as if Mount Buzhou was pressing down. It was an unstoppable saber technique, a true Hongmeng secret art. Its realm wasn't as high as Huang Ho's, but its strength could break through 10,000 sabers. It was like an adult using a saber to crush a 3-year-old child. Under the powerful control of Viral, Huang Ho's saber couldn't resist at all. It was instantly shattered into pieces. The saber will dissipated, and it was no longer a saber. With this slash, Lin Feng displayed the true strength of crushing others. What was the difference? This was it. Bang! Huang Ho spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't even know what had happened. He was already defeated. In just 2 moves. Chapter 3199. There was complete silence. On the side of the Great Simplicity Origin Chaotic Universe, the Green Foxhole Master came to Huang Qi's side in an instant and checked his injuries. His shocked and tense face relaxed a little. Huang Qi's injuries weren't serious. Lin Feng had obviously held back. However, the crushing defeat just now was real. Everyone on the side of the Great Ultimate Origin Chaotic Universe was dumbfounded. For the past 20 years, they only knew that Lin Feng had a special ability to absorb the energy of the dimensional passageway. However, they didn't know how strong Lin Feng was. He was only a Yuan Venerate. How strong could Yuan Venerate be? It was already heaven-defying to be comparable to a universe ruler, and it was unheard of for someone to be comparable to a peak universe ruler. However, Taisu Huangqi was the second strongest almighty in the Hongmeng Sea. He was a super genius whose combat strength was comparable to an ultimate universe ruler. However, such a super genius couldn't even last 2 moves against Lin Feng. 2 moves? What did that mean? The powerhouses who witnessed this exchange knew that it was a completely one-sided exchange. It couldn't be considered a duel because Taisu Huangqi posed no threat to Lin Feng at all. Lin Feng was too strong. When Chief Green Fox and Huang Qi retreated to the rear to recover from their injuries, a handsome figure appeared in the center of the battlefield. He was tall and slender, with the sword Glory hanging from his waist. He was dressed in white armor, and the crack between his eyebrows seemed to be glowing faintly. His appearance instantly attracted a lot of praise. Guang, the #1 genius of the Hongmeng Sea, the Chief Almighty, the super elite of the Great Change Origin Chaotic Universe. Guang's body was shrouded in many halos and had endless glory, just like the name of his sword. Ever since he had become famous, he had never tasted defeat. Now, just as an almighty, he had battle prowess comparable to a world master. His strength was publicly acknowledged by the entire primordial ocean, and he was worthy of being called the #1 Almighty. Ichen looked at Guang and sighed. Ichen wasn't convinced of Huang Qi's strength, but he couldn't surpass Guang even if he wanted to. Guang's strength left Ichen in the dust. Ichen looked at Lin Feng. He didn't have confidence in his best friend. He couldn't see through it. Now, he couldn't see through Lin Feng's strength at all. Over the past 20 eras, Lin Feng had hardly been cultivating. He would only comprehend his saber from time to time and spend the rest of his time absorbing the energy from the dimensional passageway. But this time, Lin Feng's sudden burst of power to defeat Huang Sui had scared Ichen. He couldn't believe that Lin Feng was so strong. However, could he win against light? This was the doubt in every expert's heart. Lin Feng's strength was a mystery, and Guang's strength was even more unfathomable. Between the two super geniuses of a younger generation in Hongmeng Sea, who was stronger? Do you want to take a break? He looked at Lin Feng without saying a word, but Lin Feng understood what he meant. No need. Let's just do it. Lin Feng didn't use much strength in his battle with Huang Sui. It was just a warm-up. Lin Feng had a good impression of Guang. He was a true expert and had the heart of an expert. Lin Feng could feel that Guang wasn't taking advantage of Lin Feng's weakness by challenging him. Instead, he really wanted to spar with Lin Feng, the combat power of a world lord. Lin Feng also had the heart to fight against Guang. In Ichen's heart, Guang was an unsurpassable benchmark and moat. Lin Feng had heard Ichen mention Guang's name countless times. Even though Ichen didn't admit defeat and longed to surpass Guang, Lin Feng knew that Ichen didn't have confidence in himself. He would help Ichen break this knot in his heart. Clang! Snow Jewel moved and instantly entered the second stage. A trace of formless but powerful energy wrapped around Snow Jewel, condensing into an invisible shield. Although it couldn't be seen clearly, one could feel the majestic energy. The legendary Homewing's elemental energy. Fairy Ling Dai flapped her crystal wings, and her beautiful eyes flashed. Previously, Lin Feng didn't reveal it, so she couldn't see it clearly. But now that it was on the sword, she could see it clearly. As expected of a genius that even the Chaos Dao Lord praised. Fairy Ling Dai revealed a sweet smile. She didn't think that Lin Feng was an enemy. On the contrary, she and the Chaos Dao Lord both thought that Lin Feng was one of the hopes of the Hongmeng Sea's future, just like Wang. The Hongmeng Sea lacked an indomitable expert who could shoulder everything on his shoulders. There was once one, but now that expert had sealed everything and cut ties with the Hongmeng Sea. Lin Feng's Hongmeng's elemental energy doesn't seem too pure. Is it just my imagination? Dao Wuji stepped on the Taiji symbol and a formless aura spread out. He was fully focused on this exciting battle. He hadn't expected that he would be able to see Hongmeng's elemental energy in his lifetime. He and the Chaos Dao Lord both longed to achieve a Hongmeng origin body, but couldn't take that crucial step. Now that they were seeing it from a Yuan venerate, they were both gratified. However, he kept feeling that Lin Feng's Hongmeng elemental energy seemed to be mixed with something else, but he couldn't sense it. In the end, Dao Wuji was still unfamiliar with Hongmeng's elemental energy. Perhaps it's because Lin Feng is a Yuan venerate and his internal universe hasn't reached perfection, so his Hongmeng origin body isn't perfect, Dao Wuji thought to himself. However, his power hasn't decreased in the slightest. As far as the eye could see, Lin Feng and Light were already exchanging blows. Intense sparks erupted from the blade and sword. There was no suppression from the internal universe, no use of Hongmeng's source items, and no domain. It seemed like Light didn't want to take advantage of Lin Feng, or perhaps both sides wanted to compete in the most direct way. The purest form of power, technique, and realm. Clang, clang. In an instant, they exchanged several moves. They were evenly matched. Every move they displayed was the battle prowess of a world lord. At this time, the experts of Tai Chi suddenly understood. No wonder Lin Feng could defeat Huang Ho so easily. He was the same as Light. His battle prowess had reached the level of a world lord. However, how did a Yuan venerate like him cultivate? Be careful. Lin Feng's voice rang out. He had defeated Huang Ho directly, but he had sparred more with light. After a few rounds, Lin Feng's combat power suddenly rose, and his blade technique became more exquisite. His energy break level rose to the true unadorned grade. Slaying Underworld, true unadorned. The move he used to defeat Huang Ho. Lin Feng also used Hongmeng Virile, but he couldn't defeat Light. The sword in Light's hand, Glory, shone brightly like an emperor's sword, and the crack between his eyebrows opened instantly. Innate skill, Domai. It could see through everything, including the opponent's moves and illusions. Not only that, but Light also used it in his sword moves. Resplendent light enveloped the area, and the dome I landed on Glory, as if he had activated a layer of the strongest power. Sky Dome Sword Technique. A legendary grade secret technique. A complete set of legendary grade sword moves combined with his own innate skills. It was a whole level stronger than the legendary grade blade technique of Tai Su Huang Ho in every aspect. Light was worthy of being the chief almighty. Chapter 3200. Light is using his true abilities. This is the true strength of the Hongmeng Sea's #1 genius. Lin Feng is in trouble. Unlike Lin Feng, who was famous only in the Hongmeng Sea, not only in the Grand Simplicity sect, but also in the entire Hongmeng Sea, he was not inferior to the World Masters. The Tai Chi experts were very clear about Light's strength. In the entire Tai Chi origin universe, other than Dao Wuji, no other cultivator could compare to Light. Thump! Ichen's heart tightened. As Light's opponent, he knew how strong Light's heavenly dome sword technique was. Compared to it, his four god-punishing strikes was simply unsightly. Even his strongest move, the incomplete heaven and earth annihilation, was inferior. Could Lin Feng win? Ichen was very worried. As a member of the Taichu and a good friend of Lin Feng, he naturally stood on Lin Feng's side. However, Light's fame was not due to flattery, but his true strength. Lin Feng, Ichen saw that Lin Feng's entire person seemed to be changing. Originally, Lin Feng was like an unsheathed blade. However, the current Lin Feng faintly felt like he had reached the realm of great success. All his strength was concentrated in his body. This feeling was somewhat similar to that of the Tai Chi sect leader. True heart cultivation. Lin Feng came to the fourth-dimensional passageway. After 20 eras, Dao Wuji had taught him wholeheartedly. The creation of heart cultivation had long entered his heart. Not only did Dao Wuji teach him the various aspects of heart cultivation, he treated Lin Feng as his disciple. Previously, Lin Feng did not fully understand, but his control over the manifestation of will was progressing well. After all, heart cultivators relied more on comprehension and feelings. If Dao Wuji was not willing to teach, Lin Feng would not be able to comprehend everything at once. This was something impossible. Sometimes, one would not be able to comprehend anything before reaching a certain realm. However, once one reached a certain realm, everything would be natural. For example, Lin Feng's Hongmeng dimensional body. At the moment of his transformation and Virile's assimilation, Lin Feng's life level, cultivation attainments, and vision were all elevated to an extremely high level. He was no longer the ruler of the universe. He had truly become a world lord. It was very mysterious and vague, but very direct. Lin Feng's attainments in mental cultivation were natural. He had comprehended everything, including the creation and changes of his blade moves, the various control of his will, and the use of mental cultivation abilities. Reverse Heart Secret Technique. The large success of the Reverse Heart Secret Art was instantly displayed. With perfect control of his heart cultivation, he manifested his will. His originally heaven-defying body suddenly erupted with a terrifying increase in strength. His golden will burned fiercely. Boom! Hongmeng Virile once again unleashed a series of exquisite sword moves, but Lin Feng ignored them all. Strength overcame everything. The tyrannical snow jewel saber was fearless of the various changes of the sword moves. Hongmeng Virile destroyed everything tyrannically. Even if there was only a trace of it, it was still overwhelming. Light's sky dome sword technique was restrained everywhere. Although his cultivation base was extremely high and his super-universe body was stronger than Huang Qi's, in terms of strength, the gap between him and Lin Feng was too big. After using the reverse heart secret technique, Lin Feng's body had already exploded to a monstrous level and was even more terrifying than a world lord. Lin Feng's Hongming virile was even more overwhelming. The fake virile was still virile. Even a trace of it was enough to create a huge suppression. Boom! Light was repelled and his face turned pale. His strength was actually not inferior to a world lord's, and he rarely met a match even in the Great Change Origin Chaotic Universe. However, he had been suppressed by Yuan Venerate here. Deep down, Light was shocked. He naturally knew that Lin Feng had transformed into the legendary Hongmeng origin body, but he had not expected Hongmeng's origin energy to be so strong. I can only use the incomplete move. Light pursed his lips tightly and looked determined. Although he was at a disadvantage, it did not mean that he would admit defeat. He was Light, and he would never admit defeat. However, at that moment, the entire dimensional passage seemed to be enveloped by a huge force. A Taiji diagram condensed in the void, resembling the Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws and the aura of Dao Wuji when he used it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everyone looked at Dao Wuji. Dao Wuji himself was a little stunned. Lin Feng's aura was getting stronger and stronger. An ethereal Tai Chi diagram appeared in the air. It was not a complete picture. The powerhouses of the Taiji Origin Chaotic Universe were dumbfounded. They naturally understood what this meant. The Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws were level 9 Hongmeng nomological laws and the symbol of the Taiji Origin Chaotic Universe. Most of them were unable to condense a Taiji diagram, but now, a Taichu Yuan Venerate had done it, even if it was just an illusory and incomplete Taiji diagram. This already meant that Lin Feng had a small understanding of the Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws. Level 9 Hongmeng nomological laws. It's not just the Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws. Dao Wuji, who was proficient in this Dao, saw through it the most. The Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws were only a part of Lin Feng's blade technique. The real killer move was the evolution of Lin Feng's blade technique. It intersected with the Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws and was very tyrannical. Domineering. Invincible. Dao Wuji muttered to himself. It was Invincible's tyrannical and unparalleled fist technique that could destroy everything. Its realm far exceeded the legendary level of Hongmeng. Lin Feng had only scratched the surface, but with the support of the primordial laws of Taiji, his current realm was not inferior to Light. The two intertwined and fused together as if they were completely natural, even if Lin Feng had never truly used this move before. But now, he could clearly sense his own body. Enough. Lin Feng had already grasped the essence of the blade technique. He had grasped the key point and mastered this blade technique. Taiji Legend. This move, which was driven by the Taiji Hongmeng nomological laws, was the blade technique that Lin Feng had painstakingly comprehended for 20 years. Every time Dao Wuji and Invincible fought, Lin Feng would sense it clearly through the boundless Taiji array and carefully comprehend it. The creation and comprehension of endless time had been assimilated by virile, and the moment the Hongmeng dimensional body was formed, it had reached perfection. The third move of the dark murdering blade technique, which was also the first legendary level Hongmeng technique that Lin Feng had created. It was different from Lin Feng's legendary level, which had yet to reach perfection. This move that Lin Feng had used had already reached perfection. Although Lin Feng was not as proficient as Light's legendary Grand Mist arts, Lin Feng's strength completely suppressed Light's. Extreme Eye of the Heavens sword. Just this sword technique alone seemed to have come into contact with some kind of powerful force. It caused the dimensional space to tremble continuously, but its power seemed to be unable to unleash the full power of the sword technique. Even though his aura was also very strong, and his innate skill, Vault Eyes, had exploded with unprecedented ultimate power, This sword that had yet to be completely formed seemed to be overshadowed by Lin Feng's peerlessly domineering blade. The moment they clashed, the scales of victory and defeat had already tilted. Boom! It was extremely domineering, like invincible. Lin Feng's move not only defeated light, it was also deeply imprinted in the hearts of every cultivator. They had personally witnessed the rise of a Hongmeng Sea World Master. Chapter 3201. I lost. Light's sword-wielding arm was dripping with blood, but there was no resentment or resentment in his voice. He accepted his defeat wholeheartedly. Lin Feng's last strike had completely exceeded his current level of strength. Losing was inevitable. If Lin Feng hadn't held back, he might have suffered far more injuries. Thank you for letting me win. Lin Feng bowed slightly. Although it was just a newly transformed Hongmeng dimensional physique, and the Hongmeng virile was still in its embryonic stage, even such a Hongmeng virile was overwhelming. If he could absorb and transform more Hongmeng virile, his strength would increase rapidly. Lin Feng's target was naturally not Huang Ho and Light, but the King of Nine Hells who had been suppressing the Taichu origin chaotic universe, and Fan Zhu in the third-dimensional passageway, Sword Light and Sword Shadows. Lin Feng had always longed to compete with the Sword Light and Sword Shadows, but he knew that his strength was not enough in the third-dimensional passageway, so he didn't force himself. It was only after he transformed into a Hongmeng dimensional physique and possessed the unique Hongmeng virile that he had the confidence to fight. This was also the reason why Lin Feng wanted to return to the third-dimensional passageway. Now, he was no longer a little guy who needed to hide behind Fan Zhu. It was time to completely reverse the situation of the third-dimensional passageway being suppressed by the Netherkill clan. After a brief silence, there was a burst of praise and applause. The experts of the Taichu origin chaotic universe looked at Lin Feng in a different light. Originally, in their hearts, Lin Feng was just a little guy with a special ability, but now Lin Feng's position in their hearts suddenly rose. In the Hongmeng Sea, no matter which origin chaotic universe it was, experts were always respected, especially those with true strength. They were even more admirable, regardless of age or background. Lin Feng had consecutively defeated the second and first seats of the Hongmeng Sea experts, which was enough to prove his tyrannical strength. He already had the battle prowess of a world lord. Congratulations, little friend Lin Feng. Dao Wuji's voice was calm and kind. When the experts of Taiji heard it, they naturally thought that Dao Wuji was congratulating Lin Feng for winning the two battles. But Lin Feng knew that was not the case. The Taiji sect master congratulated him on his progress and breakthroughs in the past 20 years, as well as the transformation of Hongmeng's body. How could he not sense Hongmeng's elemental energy? This was a legendary power, and it was the most powerful power in the Hongmeng Sea. It might even be second to none because it represented the most powerful attainments in the Tao of Meng, and the only chance to transform was when one broke through to become a powerful being. Lin Feng had been brought forward. With the Hongmeng Yuan body, Lin Feng would become even scarier when he broke through to become a powerful being. From Dao Wuji's point of view, Lin Feng's upper limit was not just the World Lord, but the strongest World Lord. He could be compared to the supreme being that sealed off the Taishu origin chaotic universe. Lin Feng was the future and hope of the Hongmeng Sea. Thank you, Taiji Sect Master, for your guidance. Lin Feng thanked him sincerely. Without Taiji Sect Master's guidance in the past 20 years, he would not have broken through so quickly. Whenever Taiji Sect Master needs help, I will definitely come to help. Good. Dao Wuji stroked his white beard and smiled kindly. Dao Wuji knew what kind of person Lin Feng was from the start. Otherwise, he would not have helped him so much. Dao Wuji did not reject his promise to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was definitely a great help now. In the battle against Huang Ho, Lin Feng had won completely. In the battle against Light, Lin Feng was also victorious. But was this Lin Feng's full strength? Dao Wuji was not sure. The only thing he knew was that Lin Feng was not as strong as he was now. He knew very well what level Lin Feng was at previously. If he could transform so much in just 20 years. What would happen if Lin Feng was given another 20 years? So what if it was 200 years? It was hard to estimate. Lin Feng was only a Yuan venerate now. After this battle, Lin Feng's status in the dimensional passage rose. Even Fairy Ling Dai chatted with Lin Feng for a while and invited him to the first dimensional passage. Chaos Dao Lord really wanted to meet Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also very interested in Chaos Dao Lord, who was the leader of the 5 great absolute beings and had also possessed a super black hole. However, now was not the time to visit and learn. Lin Feng wanted to strengthen himself and return to the third dimensional passage. Not long after, the Nether Killer race attacked again. Invincible Wanfu led the Nether Killer race to attack. This time, his eyes were not only locked onto Dao Wuji but also on Lin Feng, even though Lin Feng was wearing a mask. He was Invincible Wanfu, the strongest absolute being. His strength was above Chaos Dao Lord. Blade Light and Sword Shadow were unable to see through Lin Feng, but Invincible World could easily see through him. Although Wang Zhong did not know what method this little thief had used to secretly absorb the energy from the dimensional passageway, he was undoubtedly a calamity. Unfortunately, although Invincible Wanfu wanted to kill Lin Feng, he could not break the boundless Tai Chi array, unless he used the 6th level of Soul Ignition, Extreme Break. Just like Blade Light and Sword Shadow, Invincible Wanfu was unwilling to use it. The fragile dimensional passage could not withstand the explosive power of Extreme Break. The moment Extreme Break exploded, the dimensional passage would collapse. Once it collapsed, it would not be easy to build it again. Building a dimensional passage required a lot of luck. Hence, Invincible Wanfu would not take such a risk. There would be plenty of opportunities to kill this thief. Even if he could not kill him now, when Viral's load capacity increased, he would be able to break the boundless Tai Chi array. By then, none of the cultivators in the Hongmeng Sea would be his match. After a fierce battle, Invincible Wanfu led his troops and left, as if he had completed a mission. As a defensive array, the boundless Tai Chi array was impeccable. Dao Wuji could be said to be the best at defense among the 5 absolute beings. Even though he was in a passive situation, he still managed to guard the 4th dimension passage. Lin Feng left. Yichen and Shirwan Li also left. Dao Wuji did not ask them to stay. After all, they were willing. Furthermore, the Taichu would definitely send other experts to help. To Dao Wuji, it did not matter which cultivator came, as long as they could provide him with an endless supply of energy. Combat power was not important. It would be a waste for Lin Feng to stay here. Following Lin Feng's departure, Light also left quickly. The impact of this defeat on him was much greater than what he had seen. As a genius, he had tasted the bitter fruit of defeat. However, Light did not feel discouraged. Instead, he felt an extreme sense of urgency and desire. Increase his strength. He wanted to become stronger. Stronger than he was now. Then he would challenge Lin Feng. After experiencing defeat, some people would sink and fall. However, some people would become stronger as they fought. They would continue to fight and would never give up. Light belonged to the latter. He was the primordial ocean's chief, almighty without a doubt. Chapter 3202. In the third dimension passageway. Haha, the little guy is back. Shalumo's voice was rough, and the demonic patterns on his body were rampant. He looked fierce, but Lin Feng knew that he didn't have any bad intentions after interacting with him. He just looked a little fierce. Welcome back. When Xian Dao Master smiled, he was still as elegant as ever. The curved antennae on his head drooped down, and his eyebrows were like crescent moons. Lin Feng, it's great that you've returned safely. The Candle Guardian God laughed. Lin Feng, Yichen, and the other 2 returned. The Taichu cultivators all smiled. They fought side by side as if they were a family. Of course, there were some who were just pretending, such as the Candle Guardian God. Pope and the Sword Guardian God didn't say anything when they saw Lin Feng return. They were even unhappy. They couldn't wait for Lin Feng to die in the 4th dimension passageway. However, as long as the limitless Tai Chi formation wasn't broken and the Netherkill race didn't attack the 4th dimension passageway, nothing would happen to Lin Feng with Dao Wuji. Among the four-dimensional passageways, the fourth dimension passageway was both the most dangerous and the safest. Me? You guys forget the old when you see the new. Ichin pretended to be angry. You only care about welcoming Lin Feng and don't even look at me. I'm not familiar with you. Demon King Ashbone laughed weirdly and joked. He was the one who was most familiar with Ichin. You're lucky that you didn't die. Shalomo laughed. Damn. Ichin pouted. He had made a bad friend by mistake. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and was surprised. Second is here too? You're the one who's second. The second marshal laughed and scolded. Always taking advantage of me. Scram. The second marshal was proficient in the level 7 Hongmeng Law, Thunder God. His peers usually called him by his real name. The second marshal's real name was Pang Yu. Hee. Ichin and the second marshal were old acquaintances. He reached out and shook his hand. Old Pang, why are you here? I'm here to see you. The second marshal held Ichin's right hand and looked at Lin Feng. He raised his eyebrows and said, Brother Lin Feng, how have you been? You seem to have improved again. Second marshal. Lin Feng smiled and greeted him. The arrival of the second marshal meant that the insect plague in the Taichu Origins chaotic universe had stabilized. This was a good thing. I was the one who transferred Pang Yu over. The military god was dressed in formal attire and had a calm expression on his face. Without you and Ichin, the third-dimensional passageway's strength has decreased. Therefore, it needs to be replenished. Lin Feng and Ichin also guessed it. The pressure of the third-dimensional passageway was not much less than that of the fourth-dimensional passageway. Fan Zhu did not have a powerful formation like the infinite Taichu formation like Dao Wuji. He relied more on the combined efforts of the Taichu experts to maintain the balance of the situation. It was always good to have more combat power. Have you sent the Dao Warrior and the Bodhisattva Dao Warrior? Ichin asked. Since you came back, I sent the two of them to support you. The Daoyin Palace Master smiled. How was it? Did you gain anything from the fourth-dimensional passageway? Of course. Ichin laughed. However, it was not me. It was Lin Feng. He gained a lot. In an instant, everyone's gaze focused on Lin Feng, especially Pope. Under his calm mask, he seemed to frown. The sword protector did not hide the displeasure in his heart. They did not know how to deal with Lin Feng. Now that he had improved, wouldn't it be harder to deal with him? Lin Feng only smiled. He did not explain or deny. This made the Taichu experts even more curious. They did not know what Lin Feng gained. Only Fan Zhu looked at Lin Feng. He seemed to sense something, but he could not put his finger on it. Lin Feng did not say, and the other cultivators did not ask. After all, their relationship with Lin Feng was normal. They could not joke around like Ichin and say whatever they wanted. It seemed very mysterious. What was the difference between the fourth-dimensional passageway and the third-dimensional passageway? Even if he gained something, it would at most be some treasure from Dao Wuji or a breakthrough in a small realm. The experts guessed. Lin Feng did not say anything, and Ichin pretended to be mysterious. This made their hearts itch. Although they were close, the third-dimensional passageway did not know what happened in the fourth-dimensional passageway. If they knew that Lin Feng had defeated Light, the chief almighty of the primordial ocean, in a spar, their jaws would probably drop to the ground. In the entire Taichu Origin chaotic universe, other than Fan Zhu, only the army god was stronger than Light. Underworld, dimensional world, cold spring prison. It has finally reached 380 viral. Step by step, Blade Light and Sword Shadow had accelerated the consolidation of the dimensional passageway in the past 20 years. Especially in the last 10 eras, he had greatly increased the speed. Previously, Lin Feng had stolen the energy of the dimensional passageway when he was not paying attention. Now, Blade Light and Sword Shadow had taken advantage of Lin Feng's absence to rapidly strengthen the dimensional passageway. Although the two had not fought face-to-face, the secret battle had never stopped. The one at a disadvantage was undoubtedly Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Until now, he had not had the chance to kill Lin Feng. 20 years ago, he had already determined that Lin Feng was the newcomer that appeared in the third-dimensional passageway. However, The newcomer had run away and never appeared again. After more than 10 attacks, he did not see that damned fellow every time. It was as if he had received a warning and had sneakily gone into hiding, leaving him unable to use his strength. In Blade Light and Sword Shadow's heart, he had been thinking about how to deal with Lin Feng. He had suffered too many losses in secret. If you have the ability, keep hiding. Blade Light and Sword Shadow held the war blade in his hand. His soul flame burned and shone with a light blue light that covered his life weapon. While strengthening the energy of the dimensional passageway, it was also tempering his life weapon. The Underworld clan would never let go of an opportunity to strengthen themselves. Other than fighting, they would cultivate and become stronger. This was everything to the Underworld clan. They were a clan born for battle. Boom! Blade Light and Sword Shadow raised their war blade high, and the tyrannical blade aura cut through space. In an instant, the cold spring prison shook violently. Blade Light and Sword Shadow were high-spirited and full of fighting spirit. After more than 10 attacks, they had already gained the upper hand. Every time the weight of Viral increased, the pressure on the other side would increase. Soon, they would be able to capture the third-dimensional passageway. Blade Light and Sword Shadow will be the first 9 Hells King to attack the Hongmeng Sea. Blade Light and Sword Shadow laughed wantonly with his upper body naked. The Underworld clan's Hell Masters and Marshals quickly gathered together. Their faces were filled with ferocious smiles and fighting spirit, and their eyes were filled with ambition. They all thirsted for battle and blood. Little ones, attack! Blade Light and Sword Shadow shouted loudly and took the lead. In an instant, the mighty Underworld clan army charged toward the third-dimensional passageway with confidence. Even if he did not use Break, he would soon capture the third-dimensional passageway and kill the experts of the Hongmeng Sea. Kill them one by one. Chapter 3203. The Portal of the Third Dimension. Currently, the portal's load has reached 380 Viral. Fanzu's expression was solemn, and his voice was serious. This time, Cold Spring Prison will send out all their elites. Everyone, be careful. Don't risk your lives. Lin Feng nodded. The higher the load of the portal, the more disadvantageous it was for them. Unlike the Nether Killer clan, which had a large number of marshals, prison masters, and even 9 Hell Kings, the 5 origin chaotic universes of Hongmeng Ocean only had so many top-tier great beings. A World Master was 100 Viral, and an Ultimate Universe Master was 10 Viral. On the Taichu's side, only Fanzu was a World Master. There were 5 Ultimate Universe Masters, including Army God, Pope, Dao Yin Palace Master, Chairman Egio, and Leader Tianze. The total was more than 150 Viral, and with those Pinnacle Universe Masters, it could reach 165 Viral. After all, these were only the standard Viral, while Army God's load was more than 10 Viral. When the total load was 330 Viral, the combat power of Nether Killer Clan was equal to theirs. However, when the load of Viral increased to 380 Viral, Nether Killer Clan had 215 Viral. The gap widened immediately. Last time, 7 Nether Killer Hell Masters were already a headache. This time, Cold Spring Prison will definitely send out all 8 of them. Army God looked serious. In the previous battles, he had fought against 2 Nether Killer Hell Masters alone. A Nether Killer Hell Master was equivalent to an Ultimate Universe Master. The standard load was 10 Viral. Of course, Nether Killer Hell Masters were usually stronger, with a load of more than 10 Viral. 215 Viral. After deducting 100 Viral from Blade Light and Sword Shadow, the remaining 115 Viral was enough to send out 8 Cold Spring Prison Hell Masters and dozens of marshals. The military strength of Nether Killer Clan would be formidable. Previously, when Xian and Bodhisattva teamed up to fight against the 7th Underworld Lord, the Dao Yin Palace Masters said, now that Bodhisattva and Venerable Dao Vindication have gone to the 4th dimension, let's discuss who will be the opponent of the 7th and possibly 8th Infernal Hell Master. The 5 Ultimate Universe Masters all had their own opponents. Fanzu was already having a hard time dealing with Blade Light and Sword Shadow. it would be even more difficult for him to deal with Helm Master from the Netherkiller clan. Furthermore, it was not as easy as he thought. The moment Fanzu made a move against Helm Master from the Netherkiller clan, Blade Light and Sword Shadow might also make a move against the Ultimate Universe Masters on his side. The Netherkiller clan valued battle. They loved to fight evenly matched opponents the most, and it was also the most exciting. One could challenge those at a higher level and gain the respect of the Underworld Killer clan. However, one could not bully the weak. Of course, if there was enmity between them, that was another matter altogether. There weren't many Pinnacle Universe Masters left. There was also one Xian Dao Master, the Sword Slaughter Guardian, the Candlelight Guardian, the Second Marshal, Shirama, and the Ashbone Demon King. Of course, there was also Lin Feng, Yi Chun, and Shi Wanli who had just returned. There was silence. The strongest among these Pinnacle Universe Masters was undoubtedly Sword Slaughter Guardian. However, he did not say a word. Candlelight Guardian looked indifferent. In terms of battle power, he was far from being ranked. Why don't I do it? When Xian Dao Master said. Dao Yin Palace Master said. When Xian, you're the only one. Are you confident? I don't know. When Xian Dao Master was elegant. He gave off the feeling of spring breeze. I'll go with when Xian. Although the effect might not be as good as Bodhisattva Dao Masters, we should be able to hold him off. Ichun was like a ferocious tiger. His eyes were filled with determination. When Xian Holy Man looked over and smiled at Ichun. Okay. Fanzu's voice was like the final decision. As the commander, any arrangement could only be carried out after his final approval. If it was just when Xian Dao Master dealing with the Helm Master from the Netherkiller clan, Fanzu would not agree. However, if Yi-Chun was involved, the situation would be different. Good. The army god nodded approvingly. His gaze then fell on Sword Protector and Pope. Shall I leave the 8th Helm Master to you? I can't do it. Sword Protector was very straightforward. What if we add Candle Protector or other Pinnacle Universe Masters? The army god's eyes were like torches. Sword Protector's expression was cold. I'm not used to cooperating with other cultivators. The army god frowned. The remaining Pinnacle Yuan Venerates were the strongest among them. If he did not take on the heavy burden, there would be no other Pinnacle Universe Masters. Leave it to me. Although Sky Pool Leader did not talk much, he did not do any less. No, Sky Pool. 1-on-1 and 1-on-2 are two different things. Don't force it. The army god rejected. Sky Pool Leader's tall body exuded a strong pressure, like a pillar supporting the sky. There has to be a burden. Dalian and I are on par, but I'm better at close combat. I can barely handle 1-on-2. Absolutely not. The army god was merciless. I can. Sky Pool Leader stared at the army god. The two Ultimate Universe Masters stared at each other in a stalemate. Surging battle intent condensed like a Tai Chi diagram. Both of them were strong-willed, and neither was willing to give in. Let me do it. The sudden appearance of this voice caused all the other experts to be stunned, and they shot their gazes over with surprise. However, they saw Lin Feng's indifferent expression was calm. Lin Feng had actually planned to challenge Blade Light, Sword Shadow, 1-on-1. However, this was a war after all. Moreover, he did not have the confidence to win against the Saber Lights and Sword Shadows. In the end, he still had to consider the big picture. Everyone was in the same boat. Since no one was dealing with the 8th Underworld Lord, he would do it. It was a good opportunity to warm up before the battle with Blade Light Sword Shadow and test the power of the Underworld Prison Master. After all, he could still challenge Blade Light Sword Shadow after defeating the Underworld Prison Master. You overestimate yourself. Sword Protector snorted. He did not think that Lin Feng was stronger than him. He was just relying on that strange devouring power to restrain Taichu cultivators. However, it was useless against the Underworld Prison Master. At least his courage is commendable. Chairman Yi Jiu smiled meaningfully. Sword Protector's expression changed slightly. Lin Feng, the Underworld Prison Master, is stronger than you think. Army God looked straight at him and said seriously. Although Lin Feng might be stronger than Ichin was much weaker than the Underworld Prison Master. I know. How could Lin Feng not know the power of the underworld prison masters. Each of them had the fighting power of a world lord, and they were stronger than the Taichu Ultimate Universe Masters. Don't try to be brave. Army God frowned. Ichin smiled and said, let's leave it to Lin Feng. Army God, this kid is very powerful. Oh, all the great beings were surprised. Who would have thought that Ichin, who had always been proud and arrogant, would praise Lin Feng like this? Seeing him hold Lin Feng in such high regard, could it be that Lin Feng was really very powerful? So powerful that he could compete with the Underworld Prison Master? Are you confident? Fan Zhu's voice sounded. Yes, Lin Feng said concisely. It's decided. Fan Zhu was very decisive. He glanced at the great beings and said, get ready. The Underworld Prison Master will be here soon. Fight! Chapter 3204. Soon, the Nether Killer clan arrived aggressively. The Nether Killers of the Cold Spring Prison, led by Blade Light and Sword Shadow, exuded the cold aura of the Cold Spring Prison. It was as if they could freeze everything. Just as Ancestor Fan and the Army God had predicted, all 8 Hell Masters of the Cold Spring Prison had joined the battle. Although there were only a few dozen Nether Killers, a dozen less than the previous attack, 1 Hell Master of the Cold Spring Prison was enough to fight all of them. This was the Nether Killer clan. Every Hell Master had the combat power of a World Lord. The powerful Hell Masters could even fight a World Lord without being at a disadvantage. Hell Master Quinton, Dowei, and Wu Sha were the strongest of the 8 Hell Masters of the Cold Spring Prison. The other 5 Hell Masters had taken turns to fight, but this time, all of them were here. They're finally here. Lin Feng could feel the majestic fighting spirit and aura of the Nether Killer clan from afar. It was as if they wanted to destroy everything, especially Blade Light and Sword Shadow's aura. Every time they fought against the Taichu, Blade Light and Sword Shadow's fighting spirit and confidence were at their peak. No one could beat him. No one in the Taichu could control Blade Light and Sword Shadow, including Fan Zhu. If Blade Light and Sword Shadow wanted, he could let the 3 Hell Masters stall Fan Zhu while he attacked the Taichu's weak side to weaken the Taichu's strength. That way, his chances of winning would be higher. But Blade Light and Sword Shadow didn't want to do that. The entire Nether Killer clan wouldn't do that. They would be laughed at by the other 9 Hells. Even if they won, it would be shameful. Either they didn't win, or they had to win fair and square. They were the Nether Killer clan. Clang! Ichin's fighting spirit burst forth, and the jade bamboo, god-killing spear in his hand shone brightly. The 20 eras in the 4th dimension passage had suffocated him, and he hadn't fought with all his strength in a long time. This was the way he liked to fight, not just output energy and be a bystander. Lin Feng and Ichin had the same feeling. The fight with Huang Ho and Light in the 4th dimension passage was just a small test. Lin Feng wanted to fight with the Nether Killer clan the most. Every Nether Killer was a warrior who had experienced hundreds of battles. Moreover, their combat experience and combat realms were extremely high. Fighting with them would be a great harvest. The 3rd move of the dark murdering saber art, Taiji, was rumored to have been created by comprehending the fist technique of unrivaled 10,000 at a close distance. This was the main body of the dark murdering saber art, and not the laws of Taiji Hongming. Juku Jin's formation instantly spread out. The absolute beginning experts led by Ancestor Fan instantly faced off against the Nethersha warriors led by Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Blade Light and Sword Shadow did not hesitate at all. His soul flame burned fiercely as he went straight for Fan Zhu. Every time he attacked the same target, the other Nethersha Hell Masters also found their own opponents to kill. They were up against the 5 Ultimate Universe Masters. When Xian Holy Man and Ichin teamed up against one of the Underworld Lords, Lin Feng also followed the plan and attacked the other Netherkill clan Hellmaster. Hongming's dimensional physique had just revealed its might. Lin Feng made his move later than Hongming, but his attack landed on the Netherkill clan Hellmaster even faster. What the hell? Netherworld Lord Mang Yi looked disgusted, and the scar at the corner of his mouth twitched. To think that he, a Hell Overlord, would have to fight against a little brat? If this news spread, who knew what the other Hell Masters would think of him? He waved his mace and wanted to get rid of Lin Feng. He was too lazy to deal a heavy blow. However, Netherworld Lord Mang Yi stopped looking down on him, and his expression changed. Once a great being made a move, one would know whether he was strong or not. Lin Feng's blade technique realm was indeed ordinary, and he was only using the second move of the murderous blade technique, Homing's lost art. It was much weaker than Netherworld Lord Mang Yi's, but Lin Feng's physical fitness and explosive power were extremely powerful. Netherworld Lord Mang Yi's soul burned, and the soul flame turned his entire body red. He roared loudly. His soul flame ability was not the ice commonly seen in Cold Spring Prison. It was the exact opposite. It was the ardent eagle soul flame. Like a soaring goshawk, the fiery red light shrouded Wang Yi's crimson skin as if it was on fire, wanting to burn Lin Feng to ashes. An earth-shattering power gathered on the fiery red mace in his hand, and the ardent eagle appeared in the void. Netherworld Lord Mang Yi's attack had reached the threshold of a world lord, and it was even stronger than Huang Qi. However, compared to light, it was still slightly inferior. Netherworld Slayer Zhen Pu. Lin Feng's attack didn't have too many fancy moves, and he didn't use his strongest move either. However, it was enough to deal with ordinary hell overlords. The uniqueness of the primordial dimensional energy was fully displayed at this moment. Not only was its power strong enough, it could also faintly suppress other powers. Boom! Netherworld Lord Mang Yi was shocked. He almost lost his grip on the fiery red mace, and his netherworld power was completely suppressed. He did not let down his guard, but he did not expect this little guy to be so strong. It was extremely strange. The sword and saber crossed, and the soul flame ice covered the dark golden armor, emitting a light blue light. Saber Light and Sword Shadow, who had just fought with Fan Zhu, suddenly had a thought, and his gaze fell on Lin Feng. He is bastard who stole the will of materialization. Saber Light and Sword Shadow widened his eyes in anger. Previously, he had found out Lin Feng's identity with great difficulty and wanted to settle the score with Lin Feng. But Lin Feng had mysteriously disappeared and hid. Saber Light and Sword Shadow had nowhere to go, and he had been holding back for the past 20 years. Now that he saw Lin Feng, the past suddenly resurfaced in his mind, and he was furious. Crack! The ice froze Fan Zhu's movements, and Saber Light and Sword Shadow moved, directly attacking Lin Feng. He did not care about his identity and wanted to bully the weak. Given the arrogance of the Netherworld clan, to be able to do such a thing showed how much Saber Light and Sword Shadow hated Lin Feng. It was this brat who had forced him to defend the dimensional passage, and his speed of reinforcement was as slow as a turtle's. He was mocked by the other kings of the Nine Hells. His anger soared to the sky. Order! Fan Zhu, who had been locking on his Saber Light and Sword Shadow, did not panic. He instantly changed the formation, and in an instant, the universe was reversed. With just a small misstep, Saber Light and Sword Shadow's attack direction changed, and their target changed to Fan Zhu. As the strongest expert of the Tai Chu, how could Fan Zhu not have some skills? Fan Zhu, Saber Light, and Sword Shadow gnashed their teeth in anger, and the twisted W between their eyebrows became even more ferocious, showing signs of breaking the limit. However, Saber Light and Sword Shadow did not act rashly. If they did, it would be exactly what Fan Zhu wanted. Wang Yi, kill him for me. Saber Light and Sword Shadow's roar shook the dimensional passage violently, and even the experts of the Tai Chu could hear it clearly. How did Lin Feng offend Saber Light and Sword Shadow? Oh, right. He absorbed the energy of the dimensional passage. The experts of the Tai Chu instantly understood and remembered. The army god, Dao Yin Palace Master, and the others frowned slightly, worried about Lin Feng's safety. On the other hand, Pope was secretly delighted. They could not wait for Lin Feng to die, and it would be best if the Netherworld clan could do it for him. No problem, King. Prison Overlord Wang Yi's eyes brightened, and the braids on her head swayed. The scar on her face was extremely ferocious. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3205. Originally, Prison Overlord Mang Yi was not interested in killing Lin Feng. The Netherkill clan liked to fight with experts of the same level and did not like to bully the weak. Prison Overlord Mang Yi looked down on Lin Feng. However, the first real battle made her stop underestimating him. After that, the Cold Spring Prison King's angry roar made Prison Overlord Mang Yi take him seriously. A cultivator who could anger the king was naturally not ordinary. The soul flame, ardent eagle, burned fiercely, and the fiery red light completely covered him. Prison Overlord Mang Yi was just testing his strength. This time, he really went all out and did not hide his strength. He wanted to kill this brat for the king. Black and golden light covered his body, burning the third level of the soul, entering the underworld, supplemented by the soul flame. This was the most common fighting style of the Netherkill clan's prison overlords. It was the most stable and comprehensive, with both offense and defense, and had no weaknesses. He waved the wolf-tooth club in his hand, and the attack of his life weapon was close to the legendary level. Now, his killing moves were all at the legendary level of Hongmeng. This was only the power system of the Hongmeng Ocean. To the Netherkill clan, it was not so messy. They were all groping and improving their strength in battle. They did not understand realms at all. To them, this was an offensive technique. Edited by Lifer, Fingerfox, the technique of using strength together with a life weapon reached the strongest effect. Different dimensional worlds, different power systems. The Netherkill clan was known as a fighting clan, not because of one or two genius experts, but because of the Cold Spring Prison, one of the 9 prisons. One of the prison overlords was comparable to the Hongmeng Sea's #1 genius, Light. But this time he met Lin Feng, a genius even more monstrous than Light. A rare super monster in the Hongmeng Sea. Lin Feng could defeat Light that day in the 4th dimension. Now, he could defeat prison overlord Mang Yi, whose strength was on par with Light. In fact, Light was even stronger than prison overlord Mang Yi. Boom! Lin Feng, who was at full strength, used the heart-defying mystic art at greater mastery. Just the second move of the Abyss slaying true simplicity, the Abyss murdering saber art, forced prison overlord Manya to retreat. Lin Feng, who was fighting against Light, was not in his best condition. He still had strength to spare. Lin Feng's strength was not something that could be seen in sparring. Like the experts of the Netherkiller clan, he had grown up in bloody battles since he was young. He was from the Nether Sha clan of the Hongmeng Sea. His fighting spirit was bursting. The might of the Hongmeng dimensional physique was fully displayed in close combat. Lin Feng had yet to fully explore the might of the Hongmeng dimensional physique, but just the transformation of his fleshly body, the explosive increase in his speed and strength, and the combination of the heart-defying technique were already extremely monstrous. How is this possible? The more prison overlord Mang Yi fought, the more shocked she became. She'd clearly gone all out, yet she was still suppressed to the point of being unable to catch her breath. Her opponent's strength was extremely strange, and it seemed to be able to disperse her nether energy, causing her to be unable to fully utilize her strength. With one restriction, she was restrained in every aspect. Before the battle with Blade Light and Sword Shadow, Lin Feng had already entered battle mode. Prison Overlord Mang Ye's warm-up opponent was quite good. The Mountain Core World Incarnation gradually spread out, and with the Great World Incarnation as the core, the power of the Small World Incarnation had already finished accumulating and erupting. The golden light connected, and the dark red engravings shone. Boom! As Lin Feng's battle saber snow jewel exploded, the Mountain Core World Incarnation's Hongmeng energy exploded. Lin Feng severely injured prison overlord Mang Yi, and the latter's face turned pale as she quickly retreated. It was definitely not easy to kill a Netherkiller clan's prison overlord, who had extremely rich combat experience. Lin Feng did not have the confidence to do so now. His strength was stronger than prison overlord Mang Yi, but it was not an absolute suppression. She could not fight back at all. Moreover, Lin Feng did not intend to use all his strength on prison overlord Mang Yi. His true opponent was Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Mang Yi was defeated. How is this possible? Lin Feng severely injured in Nether Killer Clan's prison overlord? What happened? On the Nether Killer Clan side, the Taichu's side was shocked. The battle in the third dimension passage had been going on for hundreds of years. Although the Nether Killer Clan had lost countless marshals, the 8 Nether Killer Clan's prison overlords were unharmed. None of them had died, and none of them had been severely injured. In terms of strength, they were stronger than the Taichu's experts one-on-one. Naturally, it was impossible for them to die. This was the first time. It was the first time a Nether Killer Clan's prison overlord was severely injured, and it had a great impact on the Nether Killer Clan's morale. Their hearts thumped, and they were full of doubts. They did not know where the cultivator who had severely injured prison overlord Meng Yi came from. As expected, he is the Taichu's trump card. Blade Light and Sword Shadow was not angry at this time. Instead, they became extremely calm. Previously, he was furious because he thought that Lin Feng had been using tricks to absorb his will energy. He was sneaky and was unwilling to show it to others. However, now that Lin Feng could defeat prison overlord Meng Yi, Blade Light, and Sword Shadow felt different. Taichu, other than Fan Zhu, who else could defeat prison overlord Meng Yi? No one. Even a military god could not do it. Therefore, the Taichu's side of the chaotic universe was also shocked. Even the second-ranked military god of the Taichu could not do it, but Lin Feng did it in a short time and was completely unharmed. It could be seen that the two sides were not on the same level. Lin Feng's strength completely overshadowed prison overlord Meng Yi's. So powerful. This was the thought in the minds of every Taichu expert. Even Pope, who had a feud with Lin Feng, was deeply shocked by Lin Feng's strength. The Sword Shadow Guardian's face was extremely ugly. He originally thought that he had a chance to deal with Lin Feng, but now it seemed that he was delusional. Lin Feng was far stronger than he had imagined. It seems that Lin Feng has gained a lot in the fourth dimensional passage. The Dragon of 9 Tunes entangled Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Fanzu was very pleased. He had long regarded Lin Feng as his successor, but other experts in the Taichu did not know about it except for the military god. Now that he saw Lin Feng's strength breakthrough, Fanzu was very happy. Lin Feng's rise immediately alleviated the imminent crisis of the third dimensional passage. Lin Feng's energy intensity has changed a lot. Although the 9 Tunes falling formation was not as impregnable as the infinite Tai Chi formation, Fanzu's perception of the other practitioners in the battle was still quite clear and strong. If I'm not wrong, it should be the transformation of Hongming's golden body, reaching the legendary Hongming's Yuan body. The upper limit is extremely high. In the future, Lin Feng will be able to contend against Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Just as Ancestor Fan was thinking about this, he suddenly froze. This was because he suddenly realized that Lin Feng's movements had changed. He had only defeated Hell Overlord Meng Yi for an instant, and in less than the time it took for him to catch his breath, he did not attack the other Hell Overlords. Instead, he rushed towards him. His fighting spirit was boiling. He couldn't be thinking of boom. Just as Fan Zhu had this thought, Lin Feng had already made his move. The second stage, Snow Nectar, wrapped around the surging Hongmeng Virile and charged towards Blade Light and Sword Shadow with the pressure of Mount Tai. The divine beast Ning Qiong roared in the air. "Haha, you have guts." Blade Light and Sword Shadow laughed instead of being angry. Chapter 3206. Blade Gleam and Sword Shadow didn't care about Lin Feng's strength at all. Although Lin Feng's ability to defeat prison overlord Wang Yi had surprised him, he was most annoyed that Lin Feng was avoiding him. He was entangled with Fan Zhu, so it was very difficult for him to attack Lin Feng. He wasn't afraid of Lin Feng's strength. He was only afraid that he wouldn't come. Soul Flame Ice. The same Soul Flame used by Saber Light and Sword Shadow was completely different from Hell Overlord Meng Yi's. Soul Burning was the innate ability of the Netherkill clan. The stronger the soul flame, the stronger the power of the soul flame. Although the Soul Flame Ice was common and wasn't necessarily stronger than the Soul Flame Eagle, Blade Gleam and Sword Shadow Soul was far superior to Prison Overlord Wang Yi's. In an instant, Lin Feng felt as if his mountain core embodiment had been frozen. This was the first time he had truly exchanged blows with Blade Gleam and Sword Shadow. It was also his first time clashing with a world master. He's crazy. Lin Feng is really a newborn calf that is not afraid of tigers. He actually attacked Blade Gleam and Sword Shadow. The powerhouses of the Taichu were puzzled. There were so many prison overlords, yet he chose Blade Gleam and Sword Shadow. That was a Nine Hells monarch, a super powerhouse that even Fanzu was helpless against. Only the Pope was secretly delighted. He couldn't wait for Lin Feng to put on a brave front and be slain by the Saber Light and Sword Shadows, ending all troubles. A mere Yuan Venerate was overestimating himself. However, the doubts of the Taichu powerhouses soon turned into astonishment. If Lin Feng, who had defeated prison overlord Wang Yi, was considered a new star, then Lin Feng was now the center of attention. Extremely strong, a snow-white battle saber with a domineering aura actually clashed head-on with the Saber Light and Sword Shadows. Lin Feng had done something that Ancestor Fan had not been able to do. The two silhouettes quickly intertwined. The saber and sword clashed, and the sound of metal clashing continued. Even Ancestor Fan was stunned. Originally, he wanted to protect Lin Feng, but he suddenly realized that Lin Feng no longer needed his protection. The strong spoke with battle and strength. The battle between Lin Feng and Saber Light and Sword Shadow did not allow any other experts to interfere. Even Fanzu was not allowed. Lin Feng's high fighting spirit, as well as his domineering aura, clashed with the Saber Light and Sword Shadows. Third stage. The Warblade's Snow Jewel's soul seemed to have been awakened, and its artifact spirit appeared. That was the soul of a true Ning Qiong divine beast. It was sealed within and became the weapon spirit of the Warblade Snow Jewel. The biggest difference between the second stage and the third stage was the power that the weapon spirit had bestowed upon the Battle Saber Snow Jade. This was an extremely demanding divine beast artifact spirit. At the same time, it was also an extremely powerful Hongmeng divine beast. After truly entering the dimensional space, Lin Feng had already obtained the acknowledgement of Xueqiong, its true owner. Although Xueqiong had not reached the fourth stage of the Warblade Snow Jewel, which was the limit of Hongmeng's source item, the third stage was a step higher than the second stage. The acknowledgement of the weapon spirit caused the Warblade Snow Jewel to seem as if it had been reborn. Not only did its realm and attack speed explosively increase, the condensed Hongmeng viral had also been completely refined. Chi. Even so, Lin Feng was still unable to gain the upper hand. Saber Light and Sword Shadow's movements and attacks were incomparably ingenious. He was able to advance and retreat at the same time. With a single glance, one could tell that he was extremely experienced in close combat. The soul flame and ice emitted from his body were able to obstruct Lin Feng's movements. Saber Light and Sword Shadow's attacks went straight for the weak side. Saber, tyrannical and overbearing. Sword, nimble and sharp. These two weapons were completely different, but in the hands of Saber Light and Sword Shadow, they were able to display their full might. Even if they were enemies, Lin Feng still admired Saber Light and Sword Shadow. This was especially true when the two weapons displayed different abilities in battle and were even able to combine them. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. That's all you've got. Saber Light and Sword Shadow's voice was ice cold. His attacks became even more tyrannical. Although he was a little wary of Lin Feng's strange strength in terms of combat skills, Lin Feng was too weak. Moreover, Saber Light and Sword Shadow's underworld energy was not bad either. It was much stronger than Hell Overlord Mangyi. Ta! Lin Feng leaped back. The moment he stabilized himself, the image of Tai Chi vaguely appeared in the void. When the saber was raised, it was peerlessly tyrannical. It faintly contained extreme power. He knew that Saber Light and Sword Shadow was just provoking him to attack his morale. However, it was true that Saber Light and Sword Shadow currently had the upper hand. With his rich experience, if he was suppressed, it would be extremely disadvantageous for him. His realm had increased. This was the first legendary Hongmeng secret art that Lin Feng had created, although there was still a gap between it and Saber Light and Sword Shadow's realm. At least it was not as huge as the true unadorned level. Lin Feng had his own advantages. Hongmeng's dimensional body, Hongmeng's virile, was able to suppress Saber Light and Sword Shadow's underworld energy in all aspects. However, it was inferior in other aspects, including combat experience, movement techniques, and even various combat skills. He wanted to win with strength, but he could not be too inferior in other aspects. When a true unadorned Hongmeng secret art met a source-level Hongmeng secret art, it would not be able to exert any power at all. Saber Light and Sword Shadow's realm suppressed the Hongmeng Sea World Overlord. However, the Grand Mist secret art Huang Xiaolong had used was a legendary Grand Mist secret art, and there was only a difference of 1 grade between them. On the other hand, Lin Feng's strength was stronger than Huang Xiaolong's. Even though Huang Xiaolong couldn't say that he would win for sure, he could at least compete with the Blade Lights and Sword Shadows. Brutal. Facing Lin Feng's attack, Saber Light and Sword Shadow also erupted in an instant. He did not underestimate this Taichu's trump card. His face was distorted. The moment the saber and sword crossed, his blood-red eyes awakened like a wild beast. Level 4 soul ignition, brutal. Bloodthirsty, brutal, and incomparably crazy. Increasing one's strength to the limit, regardless of whether it was combined with enhancement, golden body, or nether ascension, it could unleash extraordinary power. However, brutal could easily lose one's composure. It would be difficult to maintain a calm state of mind in battle. It would be very disadvantageous in a battle where one was evenly matched. It was far less practical than soul flames. However, that was only for the underworld marshals and underworld masters, not the king of 9 hells. A true king of 9 hells had an incomparably powerful will. It was enough to overcome the side effects of brutal. Brutal did have a slight effect on Saber Light and Sword Shadow, but it was not significant. It was enough for him to unleash his full strength. 1 level stronger. Roar. Amidst the violent roar, the dark golden armor was covered with a light blue glow. Saber Light and Sword Shadow formed 10 swords, wanting to cut Lin Feng into pieces. However, Lin Feng's surging power, combined with the Taiji Hongmeng Law, had a power that made the Saber Light and Sword Shadow's hearts palpitate. Deja vu. Taiji legend. Lin Feng suddenly erupted. The third move of the dark murdering saber technique, which severely injured Light, was perfectly executed. This time, it was even several times more powerful than the first time. It was not only because of the changes in the Battle Saber Snow Jewel, but also because the Taiji legend itself was not perfect. Lin Feng had been constantly improving it in every battle. A shocking power exploded in the center of the 9 Tunes Golden Fall formation. The 9 Tunes dragons darted around, protecting every Taichu expert in the 9 Tunes Golden Fall formation. Just the destructive power of the aftershock of the confrontation was extremely shocking. Everyone knew that the Saber Light and Sword Shadow were powerful. However, Lin Feng's strength was able to contend with the Saber Light and Sword Shadow that had not been executed. This deeply shocked every Taichu cultivator. It was too terrifying. Chapter 3207. Neither was willing to give an inch. For a moment, Lin Feng and the Sword Shadows were locked in a stalemate, causing the Taichu masters to be dumbfounded. Even Ancestor Fan could not deal with the Saber Light and Sword Shadow. Yet Lin Feng was able to fight it as an equal. Didn't it mean that Lin Feng was stronger than Fanzu? Well done. Fanzu was full of praise for Lin Feng. He and Lin Feng were 2 completely different types. Lin Feng was good at attacking, while Fanzu was good at defending. Therefore, he could not deal with the Sword Shadows, but Lin Feng could fight them head-on. Not only that, but Lin Feng also had a strong force, a force that refused to admit defeat, and a sharp edge that was flourishing. Even his Hongmeng origin energy seemed to be able to restrain the Sword Shadows, causing them to faintly dodge Lin Feng's attacks. Could it be that the Hongmeng origin energy could consume and restrain Netherworld power? Fan Zhu did not know, as there was no Hongmeng origin body in the Hongmeng Sea. This was a power that existed in the legends of the Hongmeng Sea, and it was the endpoint of the path of Meng. Especially since he mainly cultivated the path of Hongmeng, he knew even less about it. Using this point, even though Lin Feng was inferior to the saber light and sword shadow in every aspect, he was able to seize the initiative to attack. It was as if he countered the saber light and sword shadow. The saber technique that Lin Feng executed was a perfect combination of Mengji One path and Hongji One path. This was what Fan Zhu wanted to do. As a world master, he lived in the Hongmeng Sea and had seen the vastness of the dimensional space. He was very clear that there were different powers in each dimensional world. For example, the strongest power of the Bug Clan was only at the Universe Dominator level, while the strongest power of the Netherkill Clan was unpredictable. Every dimensional world had its own characteristics and strongest powers. Unless one could jump out of their own dimensional world, they should try their best to reach the power limit of the dimensional world. What were the power limits of the Hongmeng Sea? The Tao of Great and Tao of Meng. Combining the ultimate power of the two, a perfect fusion, was the ultimate power of the Hongmeng Sea. From Lin Feng, Fan Zhu could already see the embryonic form. You can look forward to your youth. Fan Zhu was confident in Lin Feng's rapid improvement. He had studied this Tao for a long time, but his fusion of the Tao of Chaos and Tao of Meng was only at Lin Feng's level. Although he had comprehended many things, the shackles of the Tao of Meng made it difficult for him to take another step forward. The path of the great Tao relied more on comprehension. However, in the Tao of blindness, innate Qi was very important, and so was the accumulation of one's foundation. However, the current him is still no match for the saber lights and sword shadows. Fan Zhu was the one who could see the most clearly. It seemed like Lin Feng and Blade Light Sword were evenly matched, but in reality, Blade Light Sword was still searching for the best way to deal with Lin Feng. He wanted to prevent Lin Feng's power from suppressing his underworld energy. Once he found a way, the situation would be reversed. For the Netherkill clan, who were extremely good at fighting, especially for the King of Nine Hells, this was not a difficult task. Of course, even if Blade Light Sword could not find a way, Lin Feng would not be able to do anything to him. Blade Light Sword's movement technique was perfect. In the dimensional passage, which belonged to him, he could move freely. Coupled with the special effect of the Soul Flame Ice, Lin Feng's Mountain Core World incarnation could not do anything to him. Instead, it was restricted everywhere. Not only that, but the Soul Flame Ice was also used in every part of Blade Light Sword's battle. The attack of his natal weapon, the defense of his underworld, and his armor. He had developed his own talents to the extreme. The Netherkill clan was very good at using all their abilities. Therefore, Fan Zhu's attention was completely focused on this battle. He did not allow himself to be distracted. Now, he allowed Lin Feng to fully focus on the battle. However, once Lin Feng was in danger, Fan Zhu would not sit idly by. Because Lin Feng was the future of the Taichu, the future of the Hongmeng Sea. Again, Blade Light Sword became braver as the battle went on. Lin Feng's strength made him overjoyed. To the Netherkill clan, this kind of battle was the most exciting and carefree. In a battle, Blade Light Sword even forgot about his grudge with Lin Feng. He was immersed in the battle. In particular, Lin Feng's strange energy restraining effect made every cell in Blade Light Sword's body jump with joy. They crazily stimulated their own strength. The brutal effect did not cause any negative effects to Blade Light Sword. His perfect control of his will allowed him to perfectly display the brutal effect. The Netherkill clan's talent was the Soul Flame 6 Extremes. None of them were useless. The key was how to use them. No wonder this blade technique is so familiar. Little guy, you actually learned it from Invincible? Blade Light Sword looked at Lin Feng with sparkling eyes. He was quite fond of him. Interesting kid, interesting blade technique. Ha. Invincible will probably go berserk if he sees that his fist technique has been changed to such a nondescript state. Clang, clang. Blade Light Sword crossed and pushed away Lin Feng's battle blade. In an instant, the sword directly pierced through. The strong cyclone made the netherworld power tough and did not dissipate. The power instantly exploded and condensed, weakening the restraining effect of the power to the extreme. In a short time, Bladelight's sword grasped the method to deal with Linfone. Boom! Light blue light flashed. Bladelight's sword forced Linfone back. His soul flame burned fiercely. Bladelight's sword's fighting spirit burst forth. His eyes were bright. Hey, I can't break Invincible's fist technique. It's just right to break your lousy blade technique. Lin Feng's blade technique had indeed reached the legendary level, but in terms of realm, it had not reached the legendary level. It had only reached the legendary level by combining a part of the Tai Chi Hongmeng law. Compared to Invincible's fist technique, it was worlds apart. That was the fist technique realm of the strongest world lord. Even Bladelight's sword could not compare. In terms of realm, the strongest in the Hongmeng Sea was at the source level, such as the Thousand Blood Empress. However, she was only on par with Bladelight's sword, and was even slightly inferior. Invincible's fist technique had already surpassed the source level. Again, Lin Feng was not discouraged. He did not think that he would be able to defeat Bladelight's sword so easily. However, he could learn a lot from fighting Bladelight's sword, especially Bladelight's sword's blade technique. During the battle, he had gained a deeper understanding of it. Lin Feng was like a sponge, constantly absorbing water. From Fan Zhu to Dao Wu Ji, from Invincible to Bladelight's sword, every battle, every improvement was converted into his own strength. There was no need for Fan Zhu's protection. The entire battle was Lin Feng's clash with Bladelight's sword. This was an epic battle. It was a battle that had never appeared in the third dimension. It was intense to the extreme. Although Lin Feng was heavily injured, his gains were even greater. The Saberlight and Sword Shadow could not win the battle against Lin Feng because Lin Feng was tough and strong enough. It was also because Ancestor Fan was there. It was no different from the usual attacks. After a fierce battle, the Netherkill clan retreated. Even though they were extremely confident this time and had gathered the 8 Cold Spring Prison Masters, they still did not have an advantage. This was because the Taichu had an additional super expert, Lin Feng. Chapter 3208. They won. The Taichu experts were still in disbelief even after the battle had ended and the Nether Killers had retreated. The third-dimensional passageway could withstand 380 virile, and the 8 Hell Masters of the Cold Spring Prison had all come out, but they still won. Moreover, this victory was a little different from the past. Momentum. In the past, although the Nether Killers had retreated, they had retreated whenever they wanted. Saber and Sword Shadow dominated everything, as if telling the Taichu experts that it was not that they could not take down the Taichu defense line, but that they did not want to attack. But this time, the Nether Killers did not have such a valiant momentum. Saber and Sword Shadow fought Lin Feng for a long time. Although they had the upper hand for a while, they still could not defeat Lin Feng. This was definitely a big blow to the morale of the Nether Killers, because Saber and Sword Shadow were their king and the pride of the Cold Spring Prison. Lin Feng was just a nameless pawn. But to the Taichu, he was an absolute cardiac stimulant. Lin Feng's appearance not only suppressed Saber and Sword Shadow, but also freed Fan Zhu. It was equivalent to the Taichu also having 2 world masters in the battle, and there was no doubt about his advantage. Unless Saber and Sword Shadow used the extreme break, the third-dimensional passageway would be impregnable for a long time, and the Nether Killers would not be able to take any advantage. It was not an exaggeration to say that Lin Feng had turned the situation around by himself. Good fight, Lin Feng. The army god's eyes were exquisite. Although his aura was a little weak and he was slightly injured, he was in high spirits and could not hide his joy. Very strong. Leader Tianzi's words were concise and comprehensive. He rarely spoke, but this time he took the initiative to speak, undoubtedly acknowledging Lin Feng's strength. Haha, not only is he strong, but he also gave the Nether Killers a head-on blow. The Daoyin Palace Master smiled from ear to ear. With Lin Feng's strength, the Taichu can rest easy. It's time for us old guys to give up our positions. Chairman Yi Jiu's round face squinted into a smile. The other Pinnacle Universe Masters gathered around and praised Lin Feng generously. They were full of admiration for him. Even Yi Chen, who knew Lin Feng well, gasped in amazement. At first, he thought that Lin Feng could defeat the Netherkill clan's Hellmaster, but he didn't expect Lin Feng to be able to contend with the Saberlight and Sword Shadow. Shi Wanli was happy for his brother Lin Feng's glory. He could feel the kindness and affection the absolute beginning experts had for his big brother. They were like family to him. Of course, there were a few who didn't fit in with the group. He could tell a glance. The Pope wore a calm mask and stood alone at the side, not saying a word. Sword Kill Guardian God looked upset. Those who did not know would think that the Taichu had just lost the battle. Lin Feng's strength was indeed not good news for them. They had tried everything to deal with Lin Feng, but now they were at their wits' end. Even the great beings on the Taichu's side, led by Fan Zhu, were on Lin Feng's side. They saw him as the core and hope of the Taichu. How could they deal with him? Who could touch Lin Feng? Pope had mixed feelings. On one hand, Lin Feng's strength had protected the Taichu and the passage to the third dimension. On the other hand, Lin Feng's strength was a threat to the Taichu's origin will. Once Lin Feng took over the Taichu's origin will, there would be no more Taichu Inquisition. I must think of a way to get rid of Lin Feng. Pope was anxious. Lin Feng's existence had become a nightmare that he could not get rid of. If the Nether Killers attacked the Hongmeng Sea, the Taichu's origin chaos universe would be destroyed. The Taichu Inquisition would cease to exist. If the Nether Killers could not attack the Hongmeng Sea, Lin Feng would become the leader of the Taichu side. The Taichu Inquisition would also have no chance of survival. No matter what, the Taichu Inquisition seemed to be in a desperate situation. Getting rid of Lin Feng was an urgent matter. I can only use this method. Pope's gaze fell on the guardian god of the candlelight, the chief strategist of the Taichu Inquisition. Their eyes met, and he already had a plan. Back then, the guardian god of the candlelight had given him 3 plans to deal with Lin Feng. Unfortunately, both the best and the second plan had failed. Now, even if his reputation was ruined, he had to do this. Pope had no way out. The passage to the third dimension was calm. Blade Light and Sword Shadows had failed to kill Lin Feng for the first time. After an era, they had made a comeback, but they still failed to do so. Although he had grasped the trick to deal with Lin Feng's strange power, Lin Feng had not lived in vain in this era. His strength was steadily increasing. The Hongmeng dimensional body that had just undergone a metamorphosis was absorbing the various kinds of vigorous energy in the dimensional space, growing stronger and stronger. Lin Feng's realm and level had increased, and while perfecting the third move, Tai Chi, Legend, his control over other aspects had also increased. For example, his ability to manifest his will and the Hongmeng ruler's origin items. Now, Lin Feng had 3 Hongmeng ruler's origin items. He had perfectly grasped the Mountain Core World incarnation. The Battle Blade Snow Jewel was only a step away from great perfection, and he had grasped the 8-formation Million Wheels diagram. It's done. Lin Feng clenched his fist, and his eyes flashed with a faint trace of coldness. In 5 eras, he had crossed sword with Blade Light and Sword Shadows 3 times, and he had gained the deepest understanding of them. This was especially true for the Soul Flame Ice. Borrowing the understanding of the Soul Flame, Lin Feng had bitterly cultivated for 1.5 eras, and finally created a brand new Soul Secret technique. True Ice Essence. It wasn't at the legendary level, and Lin Feng's blade technique realm had yet to reach the legendary level. Soul Flame was a kind of talent, but at the same time, it was also a way to use the soul. Lin Feng naturally couldn't use the 6 extremities of soul ignition, but he could comprehend the unique Soul Flame Ice, which was of great help to his cultivation and vision. Lin Feng was able to create the Tai Chi blade technique, Legend, and his realm was already there. As long as his soul attainments were enough and his foundation was solid, it was only a matter of time before he could create a true soul secret technique. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. True Ice Essence might not be strong enough to deal with Blade Light and Sword Shadows, but it might be effective against other Hell Masters when they are weak and don't have enough strength. Lin Feng was very clear about the power of his soul secret technique. Although the Netherkill clan was a close combat clan, their souls weren't weak at all. On the contrary, they were very powerful. However, if he kept burning his soul, the consumption of his soul would increase when he was severely injured. When that happened, he might be able to use the soul secret technique to surprise his enemies. Brother Lin, you seem to have gained something again. When excellent holy man was elegant, and the antennae on his head drooped down slightly. Yes, I have finally created a true soul secret technique. Lin Feng smiled at when Exine Holy Man's eyes lit up and his eyebrows were like crescent moons. Congratulations, Brother Lin. You have made great progress. It is a blessing for the Taichu. You are too kind, Lin Feng said humbly. It's still early. I have to make a trip to the dimensional space. Sorry to trouble you this time. Okay. When Exine Holy Man had Lin Feng's will in his body, without saying anything, Lin Feng quickly entered the dimensional space. At this moment, the guardian god of the candlelight holy man, who had been paying close attention to the situation here, revealed a thoughtful smile. Chapter 3209. When other cultivators entered the dimensional space, they would undergo the tempering of dimensional energy and strengthen their bodies. Under the intense pressure of dimensional energy, they would even be able to force out their hidden potential or break through their shackles and gain enlightenment. However, this was not the case for Lin Feng. Viral no longer pressured him and treated him as one of its own. It did not degrade other objects in the dimensional space. Even if Lin Feng stayed in the dimensional space for 10,000 eras, 100 million eras, or even longer, it would not matter. In a sense, Lin Feng had truly attained eternal life. The dimensional world would exhaust its energy and shatter, but the dimensional space would not. This was an eternal existence. Of course, even though Viral had acknowledged Lin Feng, it did not mean that Lin Feng could survive in the dimensional space unscathed. There were endless dangers in the dimensional space, far more than what the experts in the Hongmeng Sea knew. Not to mention world lords. Even the strongest world lords and cultivators who were even stronger than them could fall in the dimensional space. Just the dimensional space's natural dimensional monsters were already exceedingly frightening. Just Viral alone could already kill a world lord. What kind of existence would a monster that could use Viral be? Lin Feng naturally would not provoke Viral monster. Furthermore, he could not find such a monster. In the boundless dimensional space, the Hongmeng Sea that Lin Feng was in and the Netherkiller clan that he was fighting were merely the tip of the iceberg. It was difficult to even find a dimensional treasure, let alone a Viral monster. From the beginning to the end, Lin Feng had only found a useless emerald jade necklace. After repeated confirmations, this was indeed an ornamental necklace with a commemorative meaning. The only special thing about it was that the material was extremely good. Even Viral could not easily degrade it. Wah! Lin Feng swam in the dimensional space while absorbing various kinds of energy. After a period of adaptation, Lin Feng could already distinguish many kinds of energy under Viral's rule. This was purely an accumulation of experience. Some energies were strong, but not easy to absorb. Some energies were weak, but they could be easily refined. To Lin Feng, the strength of the energy did not matter. He was an omnivore and was basically able to absorb any kind of energy. Furthermore, the energy in the dimensional space was limitless, and there was no need for him to choose the strongest energy. Regardless of what kind of energy it would be converted into Hongmeng Viral. When choosing energy to absorb, one only needed to adhere to one principle, and it would be easy to refine. To put it simply, it was more compatible with him. In terms of safety, it would be safer to train in a single location. Basically, there wouldn't be much danger. The enormous amount of energy in the dimensional space was simply too much to absorb. With Lin Feng's current strength, he could absorb a square meter of dimensional space for a long time. Furthermore, the dimensional space itself was constantly changing. However, that kind of cultivation was too boring. It was the foundation of absorbing energy to strengthen oneself. Naturally, one should find something to do. Searching for dimensional treasures. Although he had failed on the verge of success, even Fan Zhu had been able to find a useful dimensional treasure. Lin Feng did not believe that he would not be able to find a dimensional treasure. After all, his Hongmeng Viral was able to convert all kinds of energy. Basically, as long as this dimensional treasure could be used, Lin Feng would be able to display a portion of its might. However, if his luck was still that bad, there was nothing he could do. What's this? A seed, a fruit, or a metal ball? Lin Feng looked at the marble-like object in his hand with some bewilderment. The surface of the object was bright and dazzling, with some green vein patterns. He did not know if it was naturally formed or acquired. From its appearance, it looked like the seed of some kind of plant. If it was a fruit, it would be a little too small. Furthermore, the energy it contained was very strange and did not seem like the kind that could be directly absorbed. It also looked like a solid metal ball. The energy was hidden in the center of the metal ball. Unless the metal ball was broken open, it would be impossible to touch the energy. This was not a Hongmeng origin and was unable to recognize its owner. It also did not have any weapon spirit, or spirit soul. Lin Feng tried to use the Hongmeng Viral to penetrate the metal ball. However, he was mercilessly blocked outside. This was normal. If even the Hongmeng Viral could penetrate through it, the dimensional space would have long ago broken down the metal ball seed. Only through the control of his will could he faintly sense the energy within the metal ball seed, as well as its special structure. However, Lin Feng was still unable to sense it accurately. Firstly, his attainments in the control of his will were insufficient. Secondly, Lin Feng was not experienced enough. Even if he could sense it, he would not be able to distinguish what it was. If it's a seed, can be grown in the Hongmeng Sea? Lin Feng revealed a strange expression, as though he was indulging in fantasy. Although I can't see any special functions, it's at least better than the jade pearl necklace. The Hongmeng Viral attached itself to the metal ball seed, emitting a faint glow. Oh, I can't control it. Although the Hongmeng Viral was very strong, it was unable to control the metal ball seed. There was a core energy at its center. Compared to the first jade pearl necklace, the metal ball seed's advantage was that it was small and could attach itself to the Hongmeng Viral. This was very important. Being able to attach itself to the Hongmeng Viral meant that it had offensive capabilities. Since it could not be controlled, it could not be used as a mainstream attack. However, it was not bad as a hidden weapon. The only downside was that it could not be controlled. With his strength, he could directly throw it out like a ball. Coupled with the energy of the Hongmeng Viral and the hardness of the metal ball seed, its power could not be underestimated. Of course, it could only be used as a hidden weapon. In a direct confrontation, the opponent could easily avoid it. All right, actually, it's better than nothing. After experimenting for a long time, Lin Feng still could not think of a better way to use it. As a hidden weapon, it was not very useful. He could easily defeat the Netherkill Marshals and Hell Masters. However, against invincible 10,000 men, such a small trick could be saved. It would be useless even if he hit it. In summary, this metal ball seed could be described in 2 words. Chicken ribs. It said that things should not be done more than 3 times. The third dimensional treasure should be something good. Lin Feng was not discouraged. To be able to find a second dimensional treasure in such a short period of time, his luck was already pretty good. However, fortune and misfortune came hand in hand. There was nothing he could do if it was not very useful. Absorbing and strengthening the Hongmeng dimensional physique was his main goal. Finding dimensional treasures was just a side benefit. He would not force it. Speaking of which, the Hongmeng dimensional physique seems to have a limit. Lin Feng's recent rapid absorption had gradually made him feel that although he had successfully completed the transformation before becoming an almighty, every bit of Hongmeng Viral he absorbed was equivalent to a portion of saturation. It was impossible for him to improve endlessly. When the Hongmeng dimensional physique absorbs to the limit, I will return to the Taichu origin chaotic universe. At that time, I will be able to break through to become an almighty. Now, Lin Feng was full of confidence that he would be able to complete the final breakthrough to become an almighty. Take over the Taichu Origin Chaotic Universe. Chapter 3210. The Passageway of the Third Dimension. When XN Holy Man, who was cultivating, opened his eyes slightly, the antennae on his forehead swayed gently as he looked ahead. He saw Pope, who was dressed in a black robe and wearing a mask of joy. Behind him were the two guardian gods, the Candlelight Holy Man and the Sword Slayer. Pope, when XIN Holy Man bowed respectfully. "How's your cultivation? Have you made any progress?" Pope asked casually. "Just a little." When XIN Holy Man said humbly. Pope nodded and looked around. "Is Lin Feng with you?" Brother Lin Feng has been in the dimensional space for almost half an era. When XIN Holy Man answered honestly. Pope was his senior and was on the same level as the Dao Yin Palace Master. When XIN Holy Man naturally told him everything he knew. "Okay." Pope nodded slowly. This gave when XIN Holy Man an inexplicable feeling of confusion. It seemed that Pope had come specially for him and Lin Feng. Could it be? When XIN Holy Man's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, the Sword Slayer and the Candlelight Holy Man's hands lit up and shot towards Pope. The three formed a perfect triangle with Pope as the center. The light gathered quickly and condensed into a golden cone. Whoosh! The feeling of his surroundings suddenly disappeared. When XIN Holy Man's body shone brightly as if he had entered another dimension. "Pope, what is the meaning of this?" When XN Holy Man hovered in the air and did not attack. He could not see Pope, the Sword Slayer, and the Candlelight Holy Man, but he knew that Pope could hear him. There was no reply. After a moment of silence. "Aren't you afraid of Fan Zhu's reprimand?" When XIN Holy Man understood Pope's intention. Pope knew that he was Lin Feng's guardian and that his body contained Lin Feng's will. Although he did not know what kind of formation this was, when XIN Holy Man knew that since Pope dared to use it, this formation must be able to cut off the connection between him and Lin Feng. In other words, Lin Feng could not sense the location of Dao Master when XIN. At the same time, Dao Master when XIN could not open the barrier for Lin Feng to enter. It was impossible to attack within the dimensional space. After breaking through the dimensional passageway's barrier, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to return by himself. Furthermore, if he wasn't able to sense his position and accidentally strayed too far away from the dimensional passageway, or if the dimensional space underwent a slight change, Lin Feng would be akin to a lighthouse that had lost its coordinates during a voyage, forever losing its direction. In the dimensional space, one couldn't just rely on fumbling around to find the correct path. This was because the dimensional space itself was constantly changing, and Viral would endlessly oppress every life form and object in the dimensional space. Even the strongest world lord would die without a doubt if they were lost in the dimensional space. In the chaotic space, there was still no reply. "Unless you kill me, I will definitely inform Fan Zhu of this." A crystal jade sword appeared in Dao Master when XIN's hand. His sword intent was clear, and lightning-like waves of air covered one layer after another. His strength was on full display. He was rarely angered, but at this moment, his expression was cold, and he was beyond furious. He didn't expect that at such a critical moment in the war, Lin Feng's transformation had finally occurred. They had waited for the birth of a new hero, waited for the arrival of a hope that could shake the Hongmeng Sea, waited for the arrival of a new hero, waited for the arrival of a hope that could stand up to the Netherkill clan, and yet a troublemaker had appeared. Pope's move was akin to pushing the Taichu into a bottomless abyss. Chi! Boom! Boom! Sword Chi exploded. Dao Master when XIN unleashed his full strength in an attempt to destroy this chaotic array. However, this array was not simple. Pope himself was already an ultimate universe ruler, and with the combined strength of the two guardian deities, Sword Killer and Candlelight, even Dao Yin Palace Master and Chairman Egeo would have to expend a great deal of effort and might not succeed, let alone Dao Master when XIN. It was futile, no matter how Dao Master when XIN attacked or provoked. The chaotic array remained unmoved. It was as firm as a rock. Pope, Sword Killer, and Candlelight did not reply, as if they had tacitly agreed to everything. Bad plan. Pope knew that this was a bad plan, but he had no other choice. In terms of strength, Lin Feng was now far superior to him. Even if he gathered the three guardian deities, they would not be a match for Lin Feng. In terms of reputation, Lin Feng, who had defeated Blade Light and Sword Shadow, was like the sun in the sky. Fan Zhu and the army god were on Lin Feng's side. Although he was one of the 5 superpowers of the Taichu, he had no advantage. A bad plan was a bad plan, as long as he could achieve his goal. Pope had already thrown caution to the wind. At worst, he would fall out with Fan Zhu and the other Taichu forces. So what? At least he had protected himself and the Taichu Inquisition. As for the Netherkill clan, they could not even take care of themselves, so what if they defeated the Netherkill clan? Pope knew very well, and the message from the will of the Heavenly Tao was also very clear. With Lin Feng's current strength, he would definitely possess the Taichu's origin chaotic universe, and the success rate was unprecedentedly high, because Lin Feng was too strong. Why don't we kill Tao Master when Xian as well, and end it all? At that time, we can push the blame to the Netherkill clan and stay out of it, Sword Killer said. We can do that, although everyone will be suspicious. Now is the time when we are in the same boat. Even if they know that we killed Lin Feng, they will not fall out with us without clear evidence, Candlelight Guardian said. If Lin Feng is not eliminated, the Taichu Inquisition will die. Pope wore a calm mask on his face and said in a strong voice, "But Tao Master when Xian and I have no enmity, and we have fought side by side. There is no reason to kill him. What should be done? What should be killed? No matter who tries to stop me, I will use all means and power to complete it. But what should not be done, what should not be killed, no matter how simple or easy it is, I will not touch it." Yes, Pope. Sword Killer and Candlelight Guardian followed Pope's lead. In the dimensional space, Lin Feng, who was absorbing and refining energy, suddenly felt a chill in his heart, and his expression changed slightly. In an instant, Hongmeng Viral covered his body, his eyes opened, and the will of manifestation suddenly expanded. Lin Feng focused and carefully sensed. A moment later, "I can't sense it." Lin Feng frowned slightly. Did something happen to Tao Master when Xian? This was Lin Feng's first reaction. He left a trace of will of manifestation in Tao Master when Xian's body. Unless Tao Master when Xian died, he could definitely sense his location. But now, he could not sense anything. Did he encounter the Nethersha clan? Besides this, Lin Feng could not think of any other possibility. Only the powerful Nethersha clan could kill Tao Master when Xian. But to be able to kill Tao Master when Xian without anyone knowing, it could only be Blade Light and Sword Shadow. Would Blade Light and Sword Shadow do this? If he wanted to do so, he would have done it long ago. Seems like something happened to the third-dimensional passageway. Lin Feng felt a chill in his heart. I'm in trouble. At this time, Lin Feng was already some distance away from the third-dimensional passageway. Although he remembered the general direction, the dimensional space was constantly changing. Going back after losing the target point was not an easy task. Chapter 32:11. Even if there was no destination, Lin Feng still had to turn back. At the very least, less than half an era had passed, and Lin Feng still had an impression of the path he took. However, the dimensional space was constantly changing, and Lin Feng wasn't sure if he could find the third-dimensional passageway. However, if he didn't return now, the dimensional space would change even more after a period of time, and he wouldn't be able to return even if he wanted to. I hope everything goes smoothly. Lin Feng wasn't too worried. If he hadn't transformed into the Hongmeng dimensional body, he would have been worried about exhausting his strength and dying in the dimensional space. However, as of now, as long as he didn't encounter any extreme danger, he could stay in the dimensional space for countless eras. The Milky Way galaxy and Earth had long been possessed by the super black hole. They were all in Lin Feng's internal universe, and all of Lin Feng's loved ones were there. Naturally, Lin Feng still had a lot of unfinished business in the Taichu and Hongmeng seas. He also had many brothers and sisters in Universe 7. That was his route, and if he could return, he would naturally return. What happened to an Xan Dao paragon was too sudden. Lin Feng felt that things weren't that simple. However, it was a fact that he couldn't sense any consciousness, and the journey back had become extremely difficult. There were no coordinates in the dimensional space. Even if there were coordinates, the dimensional space was constantly changing, and it was difficult to pinpoint the exact location. He could only rely on his original memories and follow the approximate route back. However, Lin Feng couldn't figure out how the dimensional space would change. Hongmeng virile spread out, sensing his surroundings in a large area. While avoiding the greatest risk, he also searched for traces of the dimensional passageway. There were no other clues. The dimensional space was empty, and the only thing he could find were dimensional treasures. Lin Feng had already obtained 2, but it was a pity that they were of little value. As for the virile and other energy sources, they couldn't be used as a reference. That was because the amount of energy Lin Feng absorbed was relatively small and was completely negligible in the dimensional space. Bit by bit, he cautiously returned. Lin Feng was currently like a blind man crossing a river. His only hope was that the Hongmeng virile could sense the dimensional passageway. However, the probability of that happening wasn't high. It should be around here. Following his memories, Lin Feng quickly arrived at the departure location. This was the location half an era ago before the dimensional space had changed, and not the current location. Lin Feng also knew, but he couldn't just run around and try his luck. Taking one step at a time, he would only have a chance of finding the dimensional passageway if he could fix himself at a general location. Let's circle around this point. Hopefully, the changes in the dimensional space won't be too great during this half an era. Lin Feng was very calm. The more critical the situation was, the more he could not panic. Right now, he was not at the end of the road. There was still a chance. While absorbing and refining the energy to strengthen the Hongmeng dimensional body, Lin Feng searched for the dimensional passageway. The stronger Hongmeng's dimensional body was, the greater the range he could explore and the stronger his own strength would be. There was no conflict between the two. In a worst-case scenario, if he really couldn't find the way back, he would have to wander around the dimensional space until he found another dimensional world to settle down in. Regardless of whether he wandered or settled down, he needed to have sufficient strength. Lin Feng wasn't worried about not being able to take over the Taichu's dimensional body. After obtaining the Hongmeng dimensional body, he had already discovered some of its mysteries. Although he only had a trace of virile, it was like a seed. As his strength increased, the amount of virile in the Hongmeng dimensional body would increase. This gave him an extremely high upper limit and unpredictable possibilities. Therefore, even if he couldn't return to the Hongmeng Sea in the end, it wouldn't cause too many shackles to his cultivation. Taking over the Taichu's dimensional body would only be icing on the cake, and it wasn't necessary. Virile was the true pinnacle of strength. The fourth dimensional passageway. Ha ha. Gritting his teeth, the elegant when Xen holy man was now in an extremely difficult situation. He was trapped in the chaos array and was attacked by the Pope and the other 3 experts at the same time. No matter how tenacious his will was, he could not bear it. He knew what Pope wanted to do. Pope didn't want to kill him, but he also didn't want him to expose his secret. Therefore, the only thing he could do was seal him up. Both Dao Master 1 Exine and Pope knew very well that Lin Feng could stay in the dimensional space for an entire era. This was a very long period of time, and during this time, the Netherkill clan could attack again. Pope couldn't let Dao Master 1 Exine stay here. Even if Fanzu didn't find him, he would be found by the Netherkill clan. Since he had already done it, he would do it cleanly and without any loopholes. Even if this was a bad plan, he had to complete it perfectly. If he wanted to kill him, Dao Master 1 Exine would have died long ago. With the help of the array, Pope could easily kill Dao Master 1 Exine, but he didn't. Pope didn't want to go against his heart. He wasn't a good person, and he would do anything to achieve his goals. However, there were things that he should and shouldn't do. The impact of the willpower crushed Dao Master 1 Exine's last will. He was already at the end of his rope, and his mind went blank. Finally, he fainted. This was his limit. The primal chaos array flashed, and a huge triangle slowly shrank in Pope's hand. It enveloped Tao Master when Xin and sealed him in this Hongmeng Dominator source item. It wasn't a real seal. A Pinnacle Universe Dominator couldn't be sealed so easily. At least, the Hongmeng Dominator source item couldn't do it. Pope was just using a trick. He used the array to wear down Tao Master when Xion's power, then used the impact of the willpower to crush him. Finally, he used a treasure to temporarily trap Tao Master when Xion. Rather than calling it a seal, it was more accurate to say that he was bringing Tao Master when Xion out of here. There are always risks in the dimensional tunnel. It was safest to bring him back to the Taichu Dominator Source Chaos Universe and let Drunken Guardian God guard him. If Fan Zhu, Army God, and other great beings were suspicious, Pope couldn't do anything. Tao Master when Xion would wake up sooner or later. With the difference in power between him and Drunken Guardian God, it would be a stalemate for a while. By then, even if Tao Master when Xion came back, Lin Feng would be dead. Pope was already mentally prepared for his secret to be exposed. It was just a falling out. It didn't matter. He dared to do this because he was prepared for the worst. They were on different sides, so there was no need to be in the same boat. Pope, Candlelight Guardian God, looked at the golden triangle in Pope's hand. There's no need to say more. Pope knew what Candlelight Guardian God wanted to say. He also knew that his suggestion and strategy were all for the sake of the Taichu Inquisition. However, there were some things that Pope wouldn't do even if he had to die. Sword Guardian God patted Candlelight Guardian God's shoulder. He didn't say anything. Silence meant everything. We only have one goal, and now we've achieved it. Pope was wearing a black robe. His steps were firm and powerful. He wore a calm mask. Remember, we are the Taichu Inquisition. We are not puppets of the will of heaven. Yes, Pope. Sword Guardian God and Candlelight Guardian God followed Pope closely. Chapter 32:12. Lin Feng's first attempt failed very quickly. The changes in the dimensional space were much greater than he had imagined. Even though Lin Feng's reaction was extremely fast, and he had returned to his original starting point in a short period of time, the distance between them had been completely pulled apart. The primordial dimensional force could sense things, and the range it could sense was much larger than that of a materialized will. In the entire primordial sea, no world lord could compare to it. However, in the dimensional space, it could only sense a corner of the sea. After trying for half a century, Lin Feng gave up. The area he was in was obviously far away from the dimensional channel. If he continued to explore in a circular manner, the distance would only increase. The first thing he needed to do now was to determine the approximate direction of the dimensional channel. However, this was very difficult. As there were no coordinates or clues, the only things that existed in the dimensional space were virile, various types of energy, dimensional treasures, and the dimensional world. Find the dimensional world. Lin Feng controlled the manifestation will. With his ability, he was still far from being able to perfectly control the manifestation will. However, after the transformation of his realm, he had improved in all aspects, including his control over the manifestation will. Although he was unable to construct a dimensional channel like the Netherkill clan, it was not a problem for him to simply spread the manifestation will. It was very similar to the Hongmeng virile senses. However, the difference was that Hongmeng virile was real, while the manifestation will was empty. It was also because of the unique effects and abilities of the manifestation will that it could spread to a large area, far exceeding that of Hongmeng virile. Of course, in terms of the finesse of the senses, the manifestation will could not be compared to Hongmeng virile. The other was like looking with one's eyes and touching with one's hands. All the details could be seen clearly. The spread of the manifestation was like a radar scan. There was only a slight feeling. As the dimensional space was basically virile, the energy distribution was very uniform. If there was a dimensional world, it would be like an island in the ocean. It would naturally be different. It was like touching with one's hands with one's eyes closed. There were rough spots on a smooth piece of cloth. This was the feeling of the manifestation will. It was very vague and ethereal, but it was enough to search for dimensional worlds. If one were to search for dimensional treasures, it would be very difficult to clearly distinguish them unless one's control over their will was extremely strong and had reached perfection. Not only Lin Feng, but even the Netherkill clan's world lord had not reached this level. Whoosh! Lin Feng tried to control the will of manifestation. The speed at which it spread out wasn't very fast. At first, it was very strange to use this ability, but Lin Feng quickly got the hang of it. In a short while, the range of the will of manifestation exceeded that of Hongming's virile. It was suddenly cut short. It's not that simple. Lin Feng discovered the reason for his failure. Although the strands of consciousness were ethereal, they were a complete entity. It wasn't difficult for them to gradually spread outwards. The difficult part was the transformation of the dimensional space. Once the dimensional space changed, it was as if the manifested willpower was being squeezed. The already loose manifested willpower split apart, making it extremely difficult to control. Adjustments had to be made from time to time to control the manifested willpower. Furthermore, ones will had to strengthen the manifested willpower so that it wouldn't be loose. After trying a few times, Lin Feng became more and more experienced. No matter how much comprehension he had, it couldn't compare to the effect of personally trying it out. In a short while, Lin Feng threw the search for dimensional worlds to the back of his mind and focused on studying the control of the manifested willpower. With regards to cultivation, Lin Feng always enjoyed it immensely. On the other side, the third dimension once again welcomed the attack of the Netherkill clan. Viril's load was increasing. The Netherkill clan, who had returned in defeat previously, was even more ferocious this time. Under the command of their swords and blades, the 8 Hell Masters were like hungry tigers that had come out of the mountains, crazily pouncing on the Taichu experts. After losing Lin Feng and when Exine Holy Man, the Taichu instantly fell into a bitter battle. Some people would realize their importance once they were no longer around. Having Lin Feng and losing Lin Feng were two completely different matters. It was like adding an extremely heavy weight to one end of the scale, directly suppressing the Netherkill clan. Without this weight, the Taichu clan would be overshadowed by the Netherkill clan. For the first time, Fanzu was forced to use his full strength. As one of the 5 Great World Masters, Fanzu naturally had his own trump cards. He could still defend himself against the swords and blades, but against the crazy attacks of the 8 Hell Masters, the other experts of the Taichu couldn't withstand it. No one knew where when Exine Holy Man and Lin Feng had gone. However, they didn't have time to think about this now. The only thing they had to consider was how to defeat the Netherkill clan. A painful victory. The Taichu finally won this battle, but they paid a huge price. Previously, when Lin Feng wasn't around, they had been holding on, but they were already at the end of their rope. Now that the 8 Hell Masters of Cold Spring Hell had joined forces, the damage and pressure on the Taichu reached its peak. Almost all the Pinnacle Universe Masters and Ultimate Universe Masters were injured. Even Fanzu was exhausted. This battle was a tragic victory. Where did Lin Feng go? And when Exine Holy Man, there's no reason for the two of them to go missing together. Daoyin Palace Master was very confused. Whether it's Lin Feng or when Exine Holy Man, they're both well-behaved. They wouldn't go missing for no reason. Something must have happened. Army God's sharp eyes swept over Pope. The latter wore a calm mask, and no expression could be seen. During this time, other than Pope's group, no other cultivators had left. Besides, everyone knew about the feud between Pope and Lin Feng. If someone said that Lin Feng's disappearance had nothing to do with Pope, who would believe it? Army God didn't hide his suspicion of Pope. He didn't explain. Pope was indifferent. All right, I'll investigate this matter carefully. I'll make my own conclusion. Fanzu's voice was heard. He sounded a little weak. Fanzu had been exhausted in this battle. It could be said that he had single-handedly supported the entire Taichu's defense line. Without Fanzu, the passageway of the third dimension would have been destroyed. Ancestor Fan looked at the Pope with a deep gaze. He also had doubts in his heart. After being together for so many eras, he knew the Pope's character very well. When the Pope wanted to do something, he would use all means and power to complete it. It was very likely that the disappearance of Lin Feng and when Xian Dao Master was related to Pope. However, as the leader of the Taichu, Fan Zhu had to maintain fairness. Before he had any conclusive evidence, he couldn't judge whether Pope was at fault based on his suspicions and guesses. This would be a disaster for the current Taichu. Furthermore, he believed that Lin Feng wouldn't die so easily. Everyone, hurry up and recover. Fan Zhu's gaze swept over them. His expression was solemn. We can't rely on Lin Feng too much. I hope that everyone will be prepared in the coming days. Treat every battle as your last. We can't lose. His voice was low, but it was filled with tenacity and determination. Fan Zhu's figure wasn't very tall, but it was as tall as Homing's tower of two extremes. It was as firm as a rock. Yes, Fan Zhu. All the universe rulers replied in unison. Chapter 32:13. Lin Feng's control over the will of manifestation was very smooth, especially since he was already very familiar with Viral. It could even be said that he was somewhat close to it. The biggest difficulty was the adjustment brought about by the constant changes in the dimensional space. It was the same as absorbing and refining the energy of the dimensional space. The more he tried, the more experience he would have. Lin Feng, who was not in a hurry, slowly explored the uniqueness of the dimensional space and the control of the will of manifestation. Gradually, the will of manifestation was able to spread out stably. Of course, it was still far from the speed at which it spread out over a large area like the world lords of the Netherkill clan. But at the very least, Lin Feng could already begin to explore. Like a radar, it swept across the entire area. It could spread out with him as the center or in a single direction. The former had a larger area, while the latter had a faster speed. Each had its own merits. Lin Feng chose to spread out with him as the center as he could not be sure of the exact location. For example, when one of the world lords of the Netherkill clan was able to determine the approximate location of the Hongmeng Sea, they could spread their will of manifestation in a single direction and quickly search for the location of the Hongmeng Sea. The second, third, and fourth dimensional passageways were built in this way. And in the near future, the fifth or even sixth dimensional passageways might be built. Of course, even if the will of manifestation was spread out, it might not be able to sense it. After all, some world lords were not good at controlling the will of manifestation, and it was difficult to improve their attainment in this area. But Lin Feng's attainment in this area was not bad. At the very least, he would not miss out on the dimensional world. Calmly sensing the area that the will of manifestation swept across, Lin Feng could clearly feel the majesty of the dimensional space. He was like a feather, gently floating in the endless void of the universe. One era after another. The speed of the will of manifestation was stable. As time passed, Lin Feng's control also improved. The further and wider the will of manifestation was, the harder it was to control. If he was not careful and lost control, the dimensional space would change too much, and it would collapse. At that time, he would have to start all over again. Lin Feng naturally did not wish for his efforts to go to waste. He would rather be slow and steady, but he had to be precise in order to prevent his will from spreading across the dimensional world and missing it. Such a possibility existed. The slightest bit of carelessness could cause the dimensional space to change in an instant. This wasn't like training, where one could still correct a missed opportunity. However, when it came to the exploration of the will, one wouldn't even know if they missed it. As such, there were only 4 dimensional passageways from the Netherkill dimension world to the Hongmeng Sea. While Lin Feng was patiently searching for dimensional worlds, the Hongmeng Sea gradually sank into a bitter struggle. No one had expected that the first to give way would not be the first and second dimensional passageways, but the third and fourth dimensional passageways. The third dimensional passageway was because they had lost a great general like Lin Feng. The fourth dimensional passageway was because the difference in strength was too great. After all, Invincible was the strongest world lord. Compared to world lords like Blade Light and Sword Shadow, he was undoubtedly a level higher. Even if Blade Light and Sword Shadow used Extreme Break, they might not be a match for Invincible in his normal state. The fourth-dimensional passageway was still able to withstand the pressure. Fortunately, Dao Wuji was guarding it, using the boundless Tai Chi formation to gather the strength of all the practitioners to resist the pressure. However, as Viral's weight continued to increase, the pressure on it grew. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down. Regardless of whether it was the third-dimensional passageway or the fourth-dimensional passageway, they were all in an extremely dangerous situation. In the dimensional space, Lin Feng had maintained the diffusion of his will for 10 eras. Although the speed was not fast, it was very stable. Furthermore, since the 5th era, Lin Feng could already divide his attention to refine and absorb energy. At this moment, Lin Feng finally understood how difficult it was to construct a dimensional passageway. Its essence was somewhat similar to the manifestation of willpower, but the requirements were much higher than the manifestation of willpower. One was just for exploration, while the other required actual consumption. Extreme patience. There was basically nothing special about the diffusion of his will. No matter how far he spread it, he would only be able to sense the boundless and endless dimensional space. There was no difference. It was also very difficult to use this method to search for dimensional treasures, as the point of dimensional treasures was too small. It was basically impossible to sense them. Even if he could sense them, it wasn't easy to travel far and wide to search for them. It was dry and tedious, but he had to do it. Furthermore, he couldn't afford to be distracted. If he missed the dimensional world, all his previous efforts would be wasted. As long as he persevered, there would definitely be a harvest, as long as his luck wasn't too bad. All of a sudden, Lin Feng's eyes lit up in the dimensional space. After persisting for 12 eras, he finally made a discovery. It was as if a wave had suddenly encountered a tall mountain when it passed by. Although it was only for an instant, that feeling was incomparably clear. While controlling the diffusion of his will, Lin Feng slowly retreated. After carefully sensing the surrounding area, Lin Feng quickly made a discovery. It was just like a small lake in the dimensional space. Although it was enveloped by Viral, the water in the lake was still flowing, containing a unique energy. Dimensional world. Although Lin Feng was unable to sense the energy and other details that were too fine, even without experience, Lin Feng knew that this was undoubtedly a dimensional world. It was impossible for it to be a dimensional, unique treasure. That was because dimensional, unique treasures weren't that big. The distance was slightly far. With the vastness of the dimensional space, searching for a dimensional world was akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. It wasn't an easy task. Being able to find a dimensional world in this region, coupled with the unpredictable changes in the dimensional space of 12 eras, Lin Feng believed that the dimensional world he had found was most likely the Hongmeng Sea. Finally, he could return home. Lin Feng felt a sense of belonging towards the Hongmeng Sea. This was the place where he was born and the place where he landed. Since he could return home, Lin Feng naturally didn't want to wander about in the dimensional space. At the very least, he still didn't want to. Whoosh! Speeding through the dimensional space, Lin Feng was finally able to put down the heavy stone in his heart. Although there was a slight accident, there was nothing better than being able to return to the Hongmeng Sea without a hitch. Lin Feng's will manifestation firmly locked onto his target. Currently, his control over the dimensional space was extremely strong. Regardless of how the dimensional space changed, his will manifestation was able to form a perfect whole. This was the basic requirement for constructing a dimensional channel. The distance was very far. Even for Lin Feng, it was considered far. After all, his speed definitely couldn't compare to the will manifestation. For other cultivators, it was even more distant. That was because they still needed to defend against Viral. Only Lin Feng was able to travel this distance with ease. Even if it was the strongest world lord, with their will manifestation being able to lock onto Lin Feng's location, they still wouldn't be able to make it in time. Viral was too strong, and the pressure from the dimensional space was too strong. If I get lost in the dimensional space, it's indeed a 90% chance of dying. This time, being lost had caused Lin Feng to have many thoughts. Fortunately, he was able to survive in the dimensional space. If not, he would have died countless times already. We're here. It's just ahead. Chapter 32:14. The closer he got, the more Lin Feng felt that something was amiss. It was as if he was approaching a place that did not belong to him. His heart trembled. This was the most instinctive reaction of a mental cultivator. Could this be the habitat of the virile monster, or a dangerous forbidden area in the dimensional space? The dimensional space was full of mysteries. Lin Feng naturally knew that the dimensional space was far more than what he had seen. Until now, the dimensional space he had seen was probably not even a billionth of it. Lin Feng stopped. He believed in his instincts, which had saved him countless times. His instincts told him that if he got any closer to that dimensional world, he would die. The strength of that dimensional world was not something he could contend against. In the dimensional space that was filled with danger, his strength was very small. It's definitely not the Hongmeng Sea. Lin Feng had already made a judgment. If it was the Hongmeng Sea, he would definitely feel a sense of familiarity and intimacy, and not like this. Let's try the Hongmeng Virile. Lin Feng's detection method was not limited to the will manifestation. In a large area, he could use the will manifestation to spread it out. In a small area, he could use the Hongmeng Virile. This was much clearer and more direct than the will manifestation. It was like a big radar and a small radar. Both had their uses, but their uses were different. The Hongmeng Virile slowly dispersed. Lin Feng's expression was grave. The energy coming from that dimensional world seemed familiar. Netherkill dimensional world, core area. This was the intersection of the 9 hells. 9 black chains that were thousands of miles long stood tall. Below them was the boiling Netherkill lava, and the black and red flames crazily shot up. The golden black giant cocoon emitted a demonic glow, condensing a vigorous energy. The 3 kings of 9 hells touched the golden black giant cocoon with one hand, and an endless stream of energy was injected into the giant cocoon, turning into nutrients and nourishing it. Suddenly, their expressions changed, and their gazes quickly intertwined. I'll go take a look. As soon as he finished speaking, he instantly disappeared from the border of the 9 hells. His attainments in space had reached the pinnacle. In terms of movement technique and speed, he was many times stronger than the saber light and sword shadow. With the back of a tiger, the waist of a bear, and the graceful figure of a woman, she still maintained the same posture. How could the 3 of them follow her blindly? There was no other reason, because how could he be the strongest world lord? Whoosh! How Can Can's figure instantly appeared in the dimensional space. The distorted W symbol representing the extreme breaking imprint flashing on his forehead. Appearing as though he had teleported, How Can was actually speeding through the dimensional space at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at an empty space. He furrowed his brows and looked around with a grave expression. The Emperor's will can't be wrong. There are indeed minute energy fluctuations here. Did the Hongmeng Sea's practitioners find this place through the dimensional passageway, or is it something else? There shouldn't be any other dimensional worlds around us. Could it be the virile monster, a wanderer from the dimensional world? Many thoughts popped up in How Can's mind, but he did not have an answer. His figure instantly moved again, rapidly moving, and the distorted W symbol on his forehead became even brighter. How Can let out a deep roar, and an enormous amount of netherworld energy spread out, carefully sensing the surroundings. There, in the blink of an eye, How Can sense the movement of an aura. Whoosh! Chi! Like an arrow of light. How Can flew towards that aura. With sufficient strength, he was naturally not afraid of any danger. The Netherkill race was originally warlike. Even if they encountered a virile monster, they would still dare to fight it out, not to mention a practitioner who was secretly searching for a dimensional world. From the energy of that aura, How Can eliminated many possibilities. It was not a wanderer, as there was no wanderer that was so weak. It was also not a virile monster, as virile monsters rarely had extraordinary intelligence. It was impossible for them to sense the dimensional world and not enter it. It must be a practitioner from another dimensional world. Want to leave? It's not that easy. How can Kan's expression was cold. Although his figure did not look as domineering as a tiger's back, his explosive speed was the best among the Netherkill race. Among the kings of the Nine Hells, if he claimed to be second in speed, no one would dare to claim to be first. But this time, Hakuken was stunned. After chasing for a long time, he realized that the aura in front of him had disappeared. It did not disappear all of a sudden, but gradually left him behind. The opponent's speed was far above his, and he was chasing after him. He was completely left behind. That's impossible. How can Kan, who had absolute confidence in his own speed, was stunned on the spot? It felt as if his most prized ultimate move had been mercilessly destroyed without any effort. Even if he did not use break, wasn't the opponent's speed too terrifying? In the dimensional world, it was like walking on flat ground. Did I sense wrongly? Is it really a virile monster? Hakuken would not admit that it was a practitioner from another dimensional world, as it was impossible. Even among the strongest world lords, his speed was one of the best. Even if the opponent's speed was faster than his, it was impossible for him to be so fast that he could not even see his shadow. Unless it was a virile monster. A virile monster that walked in the dimensional world as if it was flat ground was extremely fast, as this was the space where they lived. It might be a virile monster that has some intelligence, but is not very strong. Hakuken secretly shivered. He did not think too much about it, and returned to the Netherkill dimensional world. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath. Hongmeng Virile was still sensing, but there were no other auras within its range. Lin Feng slowed down and stopped in his tracks, revealing a bitter smile. His luck was really not bad. As soon as he searched, he found the Netherkill clan's headquarters, the Netherkill dimensional world. No wonder he felt an extreme sense of danger. Just the Nine Hells king that chased after him just now was already a super expert that he could not resist. His speed was more than 10 times faster than the Sword Shadows. The strongest world lord. Lin Feng could roughly guess the opponent's strength. However, in the dimensional world, because of the existence of Virile, he could not catch up to him. No matter how strong he was, it was useless. Lin Feng felt helpless when he spread his will and accidentally found the Netherkill dimensional world. However, the fact that the Netherkill dimensional world and the Hongmeng Sea could be connected through the dimensional channel proved that the two dimensional worlds were not far from each other. He himself had deviated from the Hongmeng Sea, so there was a high chance that he would find the Netherkill dimensional world. My luck is not bad. This was Lin Feng's heartfelt words. Finding the Netherkill dimensional world was better than finding the Hongmeng Sea. At least he knew where the Netherkill clan was. As for the Hongmeng Sea, since he had found the Netherkill dimensional world, wouldn't the Hongmeng Sea be easy? Lin Feng smiled slightly. He just had to enter the dimensional channel. Chapter 32:15. The dimensional passageway was equivalent to a bridge between two dimensional worlds. Although Lin Feng couldn't get close to Underworld's dimensional world, he wasn't too far away either. He followed the general area and soon found the dimensional passageway. It was too simple. To return to the Hongmeng Sea, one could enter the dimensional passageway and pass through it. One could also follow the path of the dimensional passageway and travel through the dimensional space. The former was what most cultivators did, while the latter could only be done by Lin Feng. Even the strongest world lord couldn't travel through the dimensional space for such a long time. Based on the width of the dimensional passageway, this should be the first dimensional passageway. Lin Feng could easily tell that the wider the dimensional passageway, the greater the load Virile could bear. Although this dimensional passageway couldn't accurately calculate the load Virile could bear, the general area could still be estimated. It exceeded 1,000 Virile. It was much larger than the third dimensional passageway, and the energy of the manifested willpower was also much more vigorous. The manifested willpower was similar to the fourth dimensional passageway in that they both came from the strongest world lord. Of the four-dimensional passageways, only the first dimensional passageway matched. The area that the Great Change Origin was in charge of was the area where the most intense battle was taking place among the four-dimensional passageways. Lin Feng didn't enter the first-dimensional passageway, nor did he look for other dimensional passageways. There was no need to waste time. He only needed to follow the dimensional passageway back and naturally return to the Hongmeng Sea. Feeling relieved, Lin Feng slowly walked back to where he came from. He was different from other cultivators. Other cultivators found it difficult to move around in the dimensional space, but Lin Feng wasn't just taking a stroll in the park. He could also absorb all kinds of energy to strengthen himself. During this period of wandering, his Hongmeng dimensional body had grown a lot stronger. The current Lin Feng was much stronger than when he had fought Blade Light and Sword Shadow. If we fight again, I should be able to fight Blade Light and Sword Shadow to a standstill. Lin Feng continued to absorb energy and strengthen his Hongmeng dimensional body. His body gradually felt saturated. After all, Lin Feng was only a Yuan Venerate. No matter how strong his basic abilities were, there was a limit. The Hongmeng dimensional body was at the level of a world lord. Lin Feng's Hongmeng Yuan body also contained a trace of virile, making him even more powerful. Let's fight another round with Blade Light and Sword Shadow, then return to the Taichu. Lin Feng already had a plan in his heart. Now that he was fully prepared, it was time to break through his shackles and take another step forward. After completing the crucial breakthrough to become a powerful existence, his internal universe would reach perfection, and his upper limit would become even stronger. At that time, he would be able to become the strongest world lord. As for the obstruction of the Taichu Inquisition and the will of the Heavenly Tao, Lin Feng didn't care at all. Now that he had enough power, not to mention the Taichu Inquisition, even the entire Taichu powerhouse wouldn't be able to stop him. The Taichu's origin chaos universe was bound to be possessed. The first-dimensional passageway carried more than 1,300 virile. On the other side of the Hongmeng Ocean, the leader of the five world lords, Chaos Dao Monarch, the strongest world lord, and another world lord, Qian Cho Shui, were guarding it. Her strength was about the same as Fanzu's. Chaos Dao Monarch and Qian Cho Shui alone occupied 600 virile, not to mention the 12 Ultimate Universe Lords and 56 Pinnacle Universe Lords. If they attacked with all their strength, they would be able to carry nearly 800 virile. Therefore, although the battle at the first-dimensional passageway was extremely fierce, it was the easiest to deal with among the four-dimensional passageways. Therefore, they could send Light and Fairy Ling Dai to help the fourth-dimensional passageway. After the Taichu called back Dao Master and Bodhisattva Dao Master, all the heavy responsibility of assisting the fourth-dimensional passageway fell on the Great Change Origin Chaos Universe. Prepare for battle. Chaos Dao Monarch stood on the seven-colored Chaos boat, surrounded by golden Hongmeng power. He had taken over the Great Change Origin Universe and obtained the Hongmeng Golden Body. He had reached perfection in all aspects. Yes, Dao Monarch. The Universe Lords followed Chaos Dao Monarch's lead. Beside Chaos Dao Monarch, Thousand Blood Empress stood proudly, but there was a hint of gentleness in her eyes when she looked at Chaos Dao Monarch. The two of them were cultivation companions. Although they had a powerful force of nearly 800 virile, Great Change Origin Chaos Universe would usually only send out half of the virile to fight against the Nethersha clan. It didn't take advantage of them at all. War would come sooner or later. If they didn't prepare for a rainy day and adapt to the battle against the Nethersha clan, the Great Change Origin Chaos Universe would definitely be defeated when the virile bearing capacity became stronger and stronger and exceeded 1,600 virile. The Nethersha clan was extremely strong in one-on-one battles. Instead of being caught off guard, it was better to adapt now. Even if they were injured, they could accept it. Victory and defeat were common in war. Only those who weren't afraid of battle were true masters. To a certain extent, Chaos Dao Monarch was like the Nethersha clan. He liked to fight and challenge. This was because, like Lin Feng, he walked the path of possession. Along the way, he had experienced many ups and downs. It wasn't easy. We're almost there. Walking slowly, Lin Feng observed the overall appearance and construction of the dimensional passageway, including the distortion and correction of the dimensional passageway when the dimensional space changed, as well as the usage of will, etc. All of these allowed him to gain some insights. It was difficult to teach these things through words. Only by personally experiencing it would one have the deepest understanding. Even if Lin Feng was asked to build a dimensional passage now, he was confident that he could do it in a short time. However, first, he had to have enough will of manifestation. This would have to wait until he broke through to become a mighty. The Hongmeng dimensional body has reached its limit. This wasn't a short journey. Even with Lin Feng's speed, it took nearly 10 eras, let alone other cultivators. As he traveled and absorbed energy, Lin Feng's Hongmeng dimensional body finally reached full saturation. The Hongmeng viral could still absorb and fill his internal universe, forming a powerful chaos. However, the Hongmeng dimensional body couldn't absorb even a little bit more to temper and strengthen its body. Lin Feng's physical body and soul were extremely powerful now. He wasn't inferior to a world lord at all. His universe golden body and universe golden soul, which were originally 100 times the limit, were comparable to an ultimate universe master. After attaining the Hongmeng dimensional body, he had reached the threshold of a world lord. Now, he was completely comparable to a world lord. However, he was still inferior to a race like the Nethersha clan, who had an abnormal constitution. Lin Feng was only a Yuan venerate now. Once he broke through to become a mighty, his internal universe would reach perfection. The leap in the level of the Hongmeng dimensional body would be enough for him to enter the threshold of the strongest world lord. At that time, his physical body and soul wouldn't be inferior to the Nethersha clan's 9 Hells Monarch. Lin Feng, who was pondering the use of will of manifestation, suddenly looked up and saw that the dimensional passage above his head was vibrating slightly. The energy fluctuations were especially strong and seemed to have undergone a change. The Hongmeng viral spread out its senses, and Lin Feng quickly discovered some clues. It was the Nethersha clan. Chapter 32:16. Lin Feng was no stranger to the Nether Killer race's attack. Whether it was the third-dimensional passageway or the fourth-dimensional passageway, he had experienced it many times. Every 1 to 2 eras, there would definitely be a small battle. They did not necessarily have to conquer the Hongmeng Sea, but at least they had to fight to their heart's content. Whoosh! Lin Feng followed the Nether Killer race's speed. In the dimensional space, it was naturally not as fast as in the dimensional passageway. Lin Feng was quickly left behind by the Nether Killer race army, but he was not far from the Hongmeng Sea. It was not difficult to catch up. Under normal circumstances, the experts of the Great Change Origin Chaotic Universe would fight with the Nether Killer race. Let's go and join the fun. After being cooped up in the dimensional space for so long, without even seeing a ghost, Lin Feng was bored to death. Moreover, the Hongmeng dimensional body had just been saturated, and its strength had been strengthened to the maximum. Lin Feng also wanted to stretch his muscles and bones and test how strong he was now. He wanted to see if he could compete with the Nether Killer race's 9 Hells Kings. Previously, it was Blade Light and Sword Shadow. This time, it was self-improvement and murderous. Lin Feng knew very well about the 9 Hells King who attacked the first-dimensional passageway. Yamquan Hell King, self-improvement, was one of the 3 strongest world lords of the Nether Killer race. He was also the one who built the first-dimensional passageway. He was the one who had found the Hongmeng Sea through the manifestation of his will. He could be said to be the main culprit of the invasion. As for Yamquan Hell King, murderous, he was an ordinary 9 Hells King like Blade Light and Sword Shadow. The Hongmeng Sea had sent out 2 world lords, and the Nether Killer race was naturally not to be outdone. I hope I can fight murderous. Right now, Lin Feng did not want to fight against Invincible Army. Their strength was not on the same level, and Lin Feng was well aware of how strong Invincible Army was. Invincible Army was said to be even more terrifying than Invincible Army. With his current strength, he still had a long way to go. However, self-improvement was not a match against the Chaos Tao Lords. As for the murderous aura, Lin Feng wanted to see who was better. there's a battle aura. Lin Feng's blood surged, and the battle intent that had been dormant for a long time burned fiercely. Hongming's virile sensed that the aura of battle was becoming more and more intense. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Qi. He directly broke open the dimensional passageway and entered it. Lin Feng had chosen a spot behind the Nethersha clan's team. After all, it was impossible to break open a dimensional passage in the middle of the battle. It was also strange that the Great Change origin appeared behind the experts of the chaotic universe. The simplest way was to kill from the rear of the Netherkill clan. He would fight to his heart's content without any restraints. Bang! The dimensional passage had mysteriously exploded, causing the Netherkill marshal, who was at the back of the Yamquan prison, to be somewhat confused. Before he could unleash the power of the battle spear in his hand, a Hongmeng ocean cultivator suddenly appeared in front of him and slashed down with his saber. Bang! The underworld marshal's reaction was very fast. He immediately took a step back and blocked with his battle spear. However, Lin Feng's battle blade was too strong. Hongmeng Viril's destructive power was shocking and overbearing. He killed his opponent with one slash. Whoosh! Kill! The surrounding underworld marshals immediately reacted. Led by one of the underworld prison masters, they instantly surrounded Lin Feng. Blade, sword, staff, and hammer. 4 types of weapons were used in different realms and moves, enveloping Lin Feng's entire body. His speed and reaction were extremely fast. Although they did not know where this kid came from, he was definitely an enemy. They would kill him quickly. Good timing. Lin Feng's battle blade, Snow Jewel, instantly activated the second gear. He did not use too much Hongmeng Viril. With the use of the reverse heart secret technique and Lin Feng's Hongmeng dimensional body, his speed and power were comparable to a world lord, or even better. Murderous Netherbreaker. The first move of the murderous Netherblade technique that Lin Feng created was simpler and faster after improvement. It was as fast as lightning. Previously, when he created it, it was only at the level of a Hongmeng absolute art. Now, it was close to a true Hongmeng absolute art. If Lin Feng did not want to spend too much time improving it, the murderous Netherbreaker could have evolved into the murderous Nether Genuine Netherbreaker. To Lin Feng, instead of spending time improving the murderous Hongmeng absolute art, he would rather create a true Hongmeng absolute art. After creating a legendary Hongmeng absolute art, transforming into a Hongmeng dimensional body, and absorbing Viril, Lin Feng's current level was very high. Creating a true Hongmeng absolute art was not difficult for him at all. Qi, Qi, Qi. The blade technique was fast and simple. Compared to the Netherkill Hell Lords and the Netherkill Marshals, it was inferior in terms of realm and technique. However, the Netherkill experts could not break it at all. No matter how outstanding their techniques were, their attack speed and strength were completely suppressed. Lin Feng's Hongmeng Viril had even suffered from the Blade Light and Sword Shadow, not to mention the Netherkill Hell Lords and Marshals. What's going on? Hell Overlord Rar's expression darkened. The netherworld energy in his body was like a small boat that had hit a reef. It flowed out rapidly, and his Quicksilver Sword technique was instantly interrupted. Fortunately, he reacted quickly in battle and borrowed the force to retreat. Only then did he manage to avoid death. However, the other Netherkill Marshals were not so powerful. One was killed directly. One tried to dodge, but Lin Feng's instantaneous explosion left him with no way to retreat. Another Netherkill Marshal managed to avoid death, but he was bleeding profusely and was seriously injured. No matter how rich the Netherkill expert's combat experience was, it was useless against such an overwhelming opponent. 2 dead and 2 injured. Lin Feng's strength shocked the Netherkill expert. Roar! In the Netherkill clan's formation, Hell Lord Yi, who had short green hair and a devilish face, charged forward. His giant axe was resolute and ferocious. The burning soul flames revealed the bloodlust of a beast. Together with the brutality, he dealt hundreds of millions of tons of damage. He had the combat power of a world lord. He was at the same level as Hell Lord Quintin, Grand Hell Lord, and Crow Hell Lord. He was one of the 5 Hell Lords of Yamquan Prison. The Netherkill clan's 9 hells were similar to the 5 origin chaotic universes of the Hongmeng Sea. There were differences in combat power. Yamquan Prison was one of the top 3 9 hells. Hell Lord Yi's explosive power was unstoppable. His battle record in the first dimension was brilliant. Other than the Chaos Tao Lord and the Thousand Blood Empress, no one was his match. Even the Thousand Blood Empress could not do anything to him. Good. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His battle intent was even stronger. When a Mountain Core World avatar spread out, Snow Jade instantly activated the 3rd stage. In the void, the snow-white fur of the divine beast, Ning Xiong, changed color and shone with golden light. The artifact's spirit showed its power. The Hongmeng Virile instantly coiled around like a swimming dragon. The power of Snow Jade was unleashed. At this point in the battle, Lin Feng finally showed his true strength. Hey, what's going on behind the Netherkill clan? There seems to be some chaos. There are also intense battle waves. Is it the Tao Lord arrangement? Or is there an internal conflict in the Netherkill clan? In the battlefield ahead, the experts of the Great Change Origin Chaotic Universe quickly realized that something was wrong. The Netherkill clan's front line was in chaos. It was very strange. What happened? Chapter 32:17. The Chaos Tao Monarch and the Thousand Blood Empress had noticed it long ago. Although they did not know where Lin Feng came from, the process of Lin Feng appearing behind the Netherkillers and fighting them was visible to the naked eye. Moreover, 3 Nether Slaughter Marshals had already perished beneath Lin Feng's saber at lightning speed, and such speed and efficiency of slaughter was comparable to the entire Grand Change Origins chaotic universe. He's much stronger than the rumors say. The Chaos Tao Monarch had always been paying attention to Lin Feng. He had already known since Lin Feng swept through the investiture of the gods, because he knew that Lin Feng walked the same path as him. It was a very close feeling. On the path of possessing the universe, he stood alone and walked alone. The Chaos Tao Monarch had personally walked that path of cultivation, so he knew best. Therefore, he had the best impression of Lin Feng. Of course, being able to easily kill the Netherkillers was not because Lin Feng's combat skills, methods, or experience were better than the Netherkillers. Among experts of the same level, the Netherkillers had the absolute advantage. There is only one possibility for the Netherkillers to be killed one after another. Lin Feng's strength completely crushed them. The Chaos Tao Monarch's most recent information about Lin Feng came from Light and Fairy Feather Butterfly. He also knew that Lin Feng had very likely transformed and reached the legendary Hongmeng Essence body and possessed Hongmeng Essence energy. However, not long ago, Lin Feng suddenly disappeared, which surprised the Chaos Tao Monarch. It really is the Hongmeng Essence body, but his Hongmeng Essence energy seems to be... The Chaos Tao Monarch did not have much time to observe Lin Feng. The fierce attacks on the other side were like waves, one after another, making it difficult for him to breathe. Yamquan Hell King, self-improvement. He did not use Extreme Break, nor did he use Soul Flame. In fact, he did not even use brutality. He suppressed his own strength like a sharp blade. With the pure strength of the strongest world lord, he completely suppressed the Chaos Tao Lord. His attacks were like a rainstorm, but they were watertight and covered the entire space. No matter where the Chaos Tao Monarch dodged, he could not escape the terrifying sword light. It grew and multiplied endlessly. He was one of the 3 strongest prison kings of the Netherkill clan. Completely different from Invincible. As Lin Feng fought with prison overlord Yi, he still had the time to observe and improve himself. He could be considered the only cultivator in the Hongmeng Sea who had come into contact with the 3 strongest prison kings of the Underworld clan. Previously, when he had approached Underworld's dimensional world, the one who had chased after him was the strongest Hell King, who had never appeared in the dimensional channel before. There was also the invincible 10,000 men from the 4th dimensional passageway, as well as the inexhaustible self-improvement from the 1st dimensional passageway. It was a tyrannical and peerless power that was unrivaled by 10,000 men. It had a type of crushing power that could destroy everything. It was a type of strength that could be used to win and it was a type of strength that could make one proud. Self-improvement was just like a swordsman. Yes, a swordsman and not a swordsman. His style was more like the light of a blade and the shadow of a sword. His swordsmanship was fast and fierce, just like his saber skills. His attacks were swift and decisive, without the slightest hesitation. There were no flourishing sword moves. A storm of sword energy. In this storm of sword energy, there was a hidden killing move. It was like thunder and lightning in a storm, suddenly erupting in an instant, and the attack increased greatly. Even though he only used the golden body of the six extremities, it was already enough to suppress the chaos Tao Lord to the point that he couldn't breathe. This was the combat power of the strongest prison king. Peng. As he observed, Lin Feng was also sent flying by prison overlord Yi. This opponent was also not to be underestimated. His unique fighting style was refreshing to Lin Feng. The soul flame and brutality were closely combined, and he unleashed his advantages to the extreme. However, that was all. Lin Feng might not have been able to defeat prison overlord Yi easily when he fought with the light of a blade and the shadow of a sword for the first time. However, Lin Feng, who had wandered in the dimensional space for nearly 20 eras and had completely saturated his Hongmeng dimensional body, was no longer the same as before. His abilities in all aspects had been greatly improved. Qian Kuan, Zhen, Sun, Can Li Jin Dui. The ruler of Hongmeng's origin item, the 100 million wheels 8-front formation, was instantly used. Lin Feng, who had only mastered the 2 basic abilities of Qian and Kuan, had now mastered all 8 abilities. The 100 million wheels 8-front formation was no longer a decoration in his hands. The 8 worlds transformed into 8 peculiar symbols that resembled a pale blue flame burning within them. Indistinctly, the light of the 8 trigrams flickered in and out of existence, containing the profundity of the primordial chaos law of Taiji. After Lin Feng created the legend of Taiji, his comprehension of the 100 million wheels 8-front formation diagram had deepened. This was the manifestation of the 9th level primordial law, Taiji. When Qian and Kuan were combined into one, it was illusory. Qian and Kuan were illusory, and the stars moved. Layers of illusions fell on prison overlord Yi. Then, Zhen and Sun merged into one. The 100 million wheels 8-front formation shook violently, and the huge suction force quickly consumed prison overlord Yi's underworld power. Can and Li formed an array that changed layer after layer. Restrictions were everywhere, and countless traps were hidden in the array. Jin and Dui were at the center of the Tai Chi 8-front formation. There were roars that reached the depths of one's heart, and the impact of the will of the experts in the array was quite fierce. Humph! Isn't it just a broken array? Watch how I break it. Prison overlord Yi, who was in a brutal state, had blood-red eyes. The giant axe in his hand could split heaven and earth. His golden body flashed, and the roars were like thunder. Boom! 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 The 100 million wheels 8-front formation shook violently, but the Tai Chi virtual image at the core did not move at all. It contained the Hongmeng Virile, and with a trace of Virile as the core, the foundation of the array was extremely stable. No matter how prison overlord Yi's attacks fell, the 100 million wheels 8-front formation was impregnable. Its power was rapidly consumed. The 100 million wheels 8-front formation was not an offensive treasure, but a control and consumption type array. In terms of attack and support, it was not as good as the Mountain Core World incarnation, but it was just right to deal with prison overlord Yi in a brutal state. The Hongmeng Virile was limited, and Lin Feng had not yet faced a 9 Hells King. Naturally, he did not want to waste more than half of the Hongmeng Virile on a prison overlord, although this prison overlord strength was comparable to a world lord. Bastard! Break! The explosion of the giant axe had completely reached the legendary level of the Hongmeng secret art, and it had vaguely reached the peak. In terms of realm and skills, the cultivators in the Hongmeng Sea were indeed inferior to the underworld killer clan. The battle clan was not just for show. However, Prison Overlord Yeezwell was not strong enough and had not reached the level of a Nine Hells King. His control of the will and mental protection were far inferior to that of a Nine Hells King. Brutality still had a certain side effect on them. This side effect was constantly magnified in the 100 million wheels 8 front formation. The strong fighting spirit and fighting spirit, the restraint of Prison Overlord E, the depletion of his underworld energy, the dual impact of his will and soul, the ubiquitous restrictions, and the impatience of not being able to take down Prison Overlord E after a long time, caused him to fall into Lin Feng's trap step by step. In the end, he died tragically under Lin Feng's blade. Boom! The 100 million wheels 8 front formation shrank rapidly, and Lin Feng took the head of an underworld killer clan Prison Overlord. The entire dimensional passage was shocked. Chapter 32:18. That was Prison Master Yi's head. He was one of the top prison masters in Yamquan Prison, and he was even on par with Thousand Blood Empress. He had been domineering in the first dimension passage for hundreds of eras, and no one could stop him. There were even universe masters from the Great Change, Origin, and Chaotic Universe who died under his giant axe. But now, he was beheaded by an unknown little guy. Even the strongest Hell Overlord couldn't escape from him. Amidst the furious roars, several underworld prison overlords charged towards Lin Feng with excitement in their eyes. The underworld prison overlords loved to fight strong enemies. Lin Feng's killing of Prison Overlord, he had already gained the recognition of the underworld prison overlord. On the other side, the Great Change, Origin, and Chaotic Universe went crazy. Prison Master E was dead. The mighty Prison Overlord E was killed. He was killed by an unknown cultivator in a one-on-one battle. Where did this human cultivator come from? He was too powerful. Whoosh! Lin Feng's body was like a cloud shuttle as he rapidly passed through the encirclement of the Netherkill clan's Hellmasters, completely ignoring their attacks. Lin Feng was not satisfied with fighting with the Hellmasters. This time, he had entered the dimensional passage to join in the fun. The King of Nine Hells, who was full of murderous intent. He was a supermaster at the same level as Blade Light and Sword Shadow, and he suppressed Thousand Blood Empress without using break. His murderous intent was shocking, and his green and red eyes were densely covered with demonic markings. His body was full of scars, and there was almost no intact skin on his body. His life-bound weapons were 2 blood-red daggers. His dark red tongue licked the blades of the daggers. Every time he attacked, it was like a venomous snake biting. His speed was extremely terrifying. However, although Thousand Blood Empress was at a disadvantage, she was calm. Her attacks looked casual and ethereal, but there was a hidden essence behind them. Every move explained the mystery of swordsmanship, and her sword intent was majestic. It seemed complicated but simple. Origin. Among the Hongmeng's secret arts, it was even more legendary. In the entire primordial sea, only the Thousand Blood Empress had reached this level among the 5 world lords. Be it the primordial Chaos Dao Lord, Dao Wuji, or Ancestor Fan, none of them had reached the Origin realm, but the Thousand Blood Empress had. In terms of strength, she wasn't strong. In terms of comprehension of the laws of Hongmeng, she wasn't strong either. But with the strength of a world and the comprehension of the strongest Hongmeng's secret art, Origin, Thousand Blood Empress wasn't weak, and she wasn't weaker than Fan Zhu and Dao Wuji's level. Seeing Lin Feng dashing over like a gust of wind, the Thousand Blood Empress was a little puzzled. She looked behind Lin Feng and saw the group of Netherkill clan's Hell Overlords chasing after him in a frenzy, as if Lin Feng was a big dish. "Empress, can you let me have murderous chi?" Suddenly, a voice sounded in her mind. Thousand Blood Empress looked at Lin Feng in surprise. Their eyes met, and she instantly understood what Lin Feng meant. Thousand Blood Empress laughed. "Sure." The Thousand Blood Empress answered softly, her voice faintly discernible. While she dodged the murderous attacks, she also blocked the attacks of the Hellmasters behind Lin Feng. To her, this was much easier than dealing with murderous chi. "Thank you." When Lin Feng's voice rang out, the Battle Blade Snow Jewel had already manifested its primordial dimensional energy, and when it faced Lin Feng's murderous aura, Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he let out an explosive roar as he unleashed his full strength. This time, he didn't hold back. Boom! The surging Hongmeng virile exploded instantly, and even murderous Qi, who was good at close combat, was surprised. The strange power coming from the other side faintly restrained his nether power. What surprised him the most was that the other side's basic strength was not below his. Murderous Qi, whose natal weapon was a dagger, was like an assassin. Explosive power and speed were his strong points, but his body and strength were not. Compared to other Nine Hells Kings, his physique was slightly inferior. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was now using all his strength. The reverse mind secret technique, coupled with the suppression of the Hongmeng virile and the mountain core world incarnation, were instantly activated. Against a Nine Hells King, the Tai Chi 8 front formation was not very effective, let alone murderous Qi. His attacks were ghostly, his movements were fast, and his will was very strong. It was impossible to use the Nine Hells 8 front formation to deal with such a Nine Hells King. The correct way to fight in a melee battle was to use absolute strength to crush the enemy like crushing dry weeds. As a mind cultivator, he had to use his strength to attack the enemy's weakness. For a moment, Lin Feng still had the upper hand. No way. Who is he? Where did he come from? Is there such a powerful cultivator in the Hongmeng Sea? He is not a world lord. Not only is he not a world lord, but he is not even an almighty. Check carefully. His aura is only at the Yuan Venerate level. Impossible. How can a Yuan Venerate be on par with a Nine Hells King? What a joke. The Great Change, Origin, and the Chaotic Universe were in an uproar. Lin Feng's killing of Prison Overlord, he had already shocked them. Now, they were even more dumbfounded when they saw him suppressing murderous Qi. What the hell was going on? If they had not known murderous Qi's strength and seen the Thousand Blood Empress at a disadvantage, they would have been dumbfounded. When did murderous Qi become so weak? He is Lin Feng. Lin Feng? The monster who swept through the investiture of the gods. Yes, Lin Feng. It must be him. Can you find a second Yuan Venerate as strong as him in the Hongmeng Sea? Absolutely not. But that can't be right. Even if it is Lin Feng, how can he be so powerful? Look, murderous Qi doesn't even have the power to fight back. He is being completely suppressed. The air was suffocating. The powerhouses of the Great Change, Origin, and the Chaotic Universe had mixed feelings as they watched this shocking battle and saw Lin Feng display his invincible might. A Yuan Venerate was so strong that it made them feel ashamed. Haha, interesting. Murderous Qi laughed instead of being angry. After being forced back by Lin Feng, he quickly found a way to deal with virile. He attacked from the side and waited for an opportunity to counterattack. At the same time, the distorted W on his forehead glowed faintly. He could not use Extreme Break, as the dimensional passage could not support it. However, murderous Qi had not even used his soul flames. Soul flames would also increase the load and stability of the dimensional passage. He would not use them if he could, but murderous Qi would be unhappy if he did not use them now that he had finally met his match. Whoosh! Murderous Qi condensed into a substance like smoke. Murderous Qi and underworld power intertwined. Murderous Qi's soul burned fiercely, and his aura soared. His soul burned, and the 5th level of soul flame was used in an instant, forming a doppelganger that was similar to murderous Qi. Soul flame, murderous Qi doppelganger. Qi. The murderous Qi doppelganger shot toward Lin Feng at a speed that was faintly faster than the main body. The attack was as swift as thunder. Good. The Snow Jade War Saber in Lin Feng's hand hummed spiritually. The Snow Jade Divine Beast in the void suddenly materialized, and its power instantly soared to the extreme. Not only did the War Saber come to life, but its aura also climbed to the peak. The strongest 4th level